"Lock her up," Deputy Kyle Mercer shouted, pointing straight at the young black woman standing beside the counter. In Gracewell, nobody teaches law enforcement how to do its job. Maya William did not step back. She did not raise her hands in panic. She did not look around for someone to save her. She stood where she was, calm enough to make Deputy Mercer angrier. "You are arresting me," she said. "Because I asked a lawful question." Mercer moved closer. He was a thick-built man with a shaved head, a hard jaw, and the kind of confidence that came from knowing most people in Gracewell were too afraid to challenge a badge. He looked Maya up and down as if trying to decide whether she was brave, foolish, or simply unaware of where she was. "You want to repeat that?" he asked. Maya looked directly at him. "I asked Sheriff Harlan to name the ordinance Mrs. Carter violated by holding a breakfast fundraiser inside a licensed diner. That is not obstruction. That is a question." Sheriff Wade Harlan stood a few feet behind Mercer, his thumbs hooked near his belt, his polished badge catching the morning light. He was 55 years old, tall, broad-shouldered, gray at the temples, and far too comfortable in rooms that went silent when he entered. For 14 years, Harlan had been the sheriff of Gracewell, Alabama. He knew who owned which business, who owed back taxes, who had a son on probation, who had a cousin trying to get a county job. In a town like Gracewell, information was not just useful, it was a leash. That morning, Harlan had walked into Maggie's table to shut down Mrs. Evelyn Carter's fundraiser. Evelyn Carter was 67, black, widowed, and the owner of Carter's Sweet Oven, a small bakery in South End. She had organized the breakfast to raise money for legal fees after months of fines, permit delays, and police stops that seemed to fall mostly on black families and black-owned businesses. The gathering was peaceful. Neighbors had come for coffee, eggs, biscuits, and the chance to help an elderly woman keep the bakery her late husband had helped her build. A few people had placed folded bills into donation envelopes. Others had simply come to sit beside Evelyn, so she would know she was not alone. Then Harlan entered with Mercer and announced that the event was under review for possible violations of town code. He told Evelyn the fundraiser would have to end immediately. Evelyn asked what rule she had broken. Harlan did not answer. Instead, he said, "Mrs. Carter, you have already been warned about unauthorized commercial activity connected to an active legal dispute." Maya had been standing near the counter with a cup of coffee she had not yet finished. Until then, she had said nothing. She had listened. She had watched. She had let Harlan speak long enough to make the shape of his threat clear. Then she turned toward him. "Sheriff," she said, "Mrs. Carter is not violating any ordinance by serving breakfast in a licensed diner." Harlan's eyes moved to her slowly. "What did you say?" Maya kept her voice even. "I said, Mrs. Carter is not violating any ordinance. Maggie's table is a licensed food establishment. The customers are paying for breakfast. The donation envelopes are voluntary. This is not a street event, a public obstruction, or an unlicensed business operation." Mercer let out a short laugh. "Well, listen to that." She came prepared. Maya ignored him. She looked at Harlan and continued. "A private breakfast inside a licensed diner does not become illegal because the money helps people hire an attorney. Raising legal defense funds is not a crime. Asking neighbors for support is not a crime. And Mrs. Carter refusing to sell her bakery is not a crime either." That last sentence changed Harlan's expression, only slightly. But Maya saw it. Caleb Carter, Evelyn's 24-year-old grandson, stood beside his grandmother. He had been quiet until then, his jaw tight, one hand resting on the back of Evelyn's chair. "That's right," Caleb said. "Grandma didn't do anything wrong." Mercer turned toward him. "Sit down before you make this worse." Maya shifted her attention to Mercer. "He is allowed to speak." Mercer's face hardened. "And you're allowed to mind your business." "This is my business now," Maya said. Sheriff Harlan took one step forward. "Are you an attorney, Miss William?" "No." "Then you don't get to decide what is or isn't a violation in my town." Maya looked at him steadily. "No, Sheriff. You don't get to decide that either. The law does." For a moment, no one spoke. Maya continued before Harlan could redirect the room. "If Mrs. Carter is in violation, Issue a written citation with the code section, the factual basis, and the appeal process. If she is not in violation, then ordering her to shut down this fundraiser is not enforcement. It is intimidation. Mercer moved closer. You need to stop talking. Am I being ordered to stop asking a public official to identify the law he claims to be enforcing? You're being ordered to stop interfering. What duty am I interfering with? Mercer's mouth tightened. Harlan answered before his deputy could lose control. You are creating a disturbance. Maya turned slightly and looked at the tables where people sat holding donation envelopes. Then she looked back at Harlan. The disturbance began when armed officers entered a diner to stop a lawful breakfast fundraiser without naming a law. Evelyn lowered her eyes, not because Maya was wrong, but because in Gracewell, being right did not always protect you. Caleb moved closer to his grandmother. Sheriff, this is harassment, he said. Harlan pointed at him without looking away from Maya. Caleb, sit down. Caleb did not move. Mercer turned toward him. You want to go too? Maya saw Caleb's hands curl into fists. She knew that kind of anger. It was not reckless. It was exhausted. The anger of a man who had been stopped too many times, searched too many times, called boy, by men who knew exactly what they were doing. Maya spoke before Caleb could. Caleb, don't. He looked at her. Her voice stayed steady. Do not give them what they came here hoping to get. That made Mercer snap his attention back to her. What did you just say? Maya faced him. I said, this department appears to be manufacturing a reason to arrest someone. Harlan's face changed, only slightly, but enough. The careful mask slipped for half a second, and Maya saw the man underneath it. Not a public servant, not a peace officer, a man whose authority had been questioned in front of people he expected to control. Harlan said, Miss William, you are done. I have not broken any law. You have been warned. Warned to do what? To stop. Stop asking for the legal basis of your order? Mercer reached for her arm. Maya took one controlled step back and raised both hands where everyone could see them. I do not consent to being touched. Mercer grabbed her wrist anyway. Caleb surged forward. Pastor Samuel Brooks, 70 years old and leaning on a cane, caught Caleb by the forearm. Not yet, the pastor said quietly. Caleb looked at him, breathing hard. Pastor Brooks did not raise his voice. Let the truth finish what she started. Mercer twisted Maya's wrist behind her back. It was not enough to injure her. It was enough to humiliate her. Maya understood the difference. She had built parts of her career on understanding that difference. In towns like Gracewell, cruelty often came measured, not wild. A grip just tight enough. A charge just vague enough. A threat just polite enough to deny later. You are making a mistake, Maya said. Mercer leaned close. No, sweetheart. You made the mistake when you thought being loud made you important. I was not loud. That irritated him more than shouting would have. He pulled her other arm back and snapped the handcuffs onto her wrists. The sound of the cuffs closed something in the room. Evelyn stood, one hand pressed against her chest. Please, she said. She didn't do anything, and neither did I. Maya turned her head enough to see Evelyn. That's right, Mrs. Carter, she said. You did not violate the law. Do not let them make you confess to something that never happened. Harlan's eyes sharpened. Careful, Miss William. Maya looked back at him. No, Sheriff. You be careful. Mrs. Carter's fundraiser is lawful. Your order to stop it has no stated legal basis. Your deputy has now placed me in cuffs after I asked you to identify the law. And you have witnesses. Mercer yanked her arm. Enough. But Maya kept her eyes on Harlan. If you believed she violated a real ordinance, you would have named it by now. Harlan took one slow step toward her. His voice dropped. Mrs. Carter has a long history of compliance issues. No, Maya said. Mrs. Carter has a long history of being targeted. The words landed hard. Evelyn's lips trembled. Caleb looked at Maya as if she had said aloud something his family had carried for years, but never been allowed to prove. Harlan's face went still. That is a serious accusation. It is a serious pattern. You have no idea what you are talking about. Maya held his stare. I know the difference between enforcement and pressure. I know the difference between a citation and a warning shot. And I know Mrs. Carter is not breaking the law by accepting help from her neighbors. Harlan finally looked at Evelyn. Mrs. Carter, I suggest you sit down before this fundraiser becomes the least of your problems. Evelyn's lips trembled again. For a moment, Maya thought the older woman might apologize, not because she had done anything wrong, but because years of pressure had trained her to believe survival sometimes required apology. Instead, Evelyn straightened. This is my town too, Wade. Harlan stared at her. The use of his first name struck him harder than Maya expected. It reminded the room that before he was Sheriff Harlan, he had been Wade Harlan, a man who grew up on the same roads, under the same courthouse clock, eating at the same diner as everyone else. His badge had not made him larger. It had only made people act smaller around him. Harlan stepped closer to Evelyn. You should choose your words carefully. Maya spoke before Evelyn could answer. Threatening a witness now too, Sheriff? That did it. Harlan turned back to Mercer. Take her in. Obstruction, disorderly conduct, failure to comply. Maya looked at Harlan. You should call a lawyer before you put me in a cell. Mercer laughed. You hear that? She thinks she gets to give advice. Harlan did not laugh. For the first time that morning, uncertainty crossed his face. Small and quick. He studied Maya, as if trying to see past the brown jacket, the simple boots, the calm eyes. Who are you really? He asked. Maya held his gaze. You had the chance to ask that before you ordered the cuffs. Harlan's mouth tightened. Is that supposed to scare me? No, Maya said. It is supposed to warn you. Mercer gave the cuffs a hard tug. Move. Maya walked. She did not stumble. She did not beg. She did not turn the moment into theater. That was not why she had come to Gracewell. As Mercer led her toward the door, Caleb spoke again. Maya. She stopped and looked back. His face was full of helpless fury. Beside him, Evelyn stood with tears in her eyes, but her chin lifted. Pastor Brooks watched silently, one hand still resting on his cane. Maya said, Remember everything. Caleb frowned. What? Everything, she repeated. The words, the time, who was standing where. Remember it, and remember this most of all. Your grandmother did not break the law. Harlan stepped between them. That's enough. Maya turned back toward the door. Mercer pushed it open, and the bell above the entrance rang lightly, too cheerful for what was happening. Outside, Main Street carried on as if nothing had changed. A delivery truck rolled past the hardware store. The flag above the post office moved in the October wind. The courthouse clock marked the hour with the same indifferent face it had shown for generations. Mercer guided Maya to the sheriff's cruiser. He opened the back door and lowered his voice. Still feeling smart? Maya looked at him. I feel observant. He shoved her into the back seat harder than necessary. She caught herself against the seat, sat upright, and looked through the window at Maggie's table. Faces filled the glass now. Not just watching, witnessing. That mattered. Mercer slammed the door. Inside the cruiser, the air smelled of vinyl, dust, and old coffee. Maya shifted her wrists slightly inside the cuffs. They were tight, too tight to be accidental. She looked at the dashboard clock. 9:42 a.m. She made a note of it in her mind. Harlan got into the front passenger seat. Mercer slid behind the wheel. For a few seconds, neither man spoke. Then Harlan turned slightly. You came to the wrong town, Miss William. Maya looked at his reflection in the rearview mirror. No, Sheriff, she said. I came to the right one. Mercer snorted and pulled away from the curb. The cruiser rolled past Maggie's table, past the barber shop, past the old pharmacy with sun-faded advertisements in the window. 2 blocks ahead stood the Gracewell Sheriff's Department, a square brick building with an American flag out front and a sign that read, To Protect and Serve. Maya looked at those words as the car approached. Protect whom? Serve whom? Those were not angry questions. They were the questions she had spent years asking in towns where the law had become personal property in the hands of men who wore it like inheritance. Her father's voice rose in her memory, quiet and tired from a day that had nearly broken him. Don't hate the law, Maya. Hate the people who use it wrong. She closed her eyes for 1 second. When she opened them, the cruiser was turning into the sheriff's department parking lot. Harlan thought the arrest was a lesson. Mercer thought it was a victory. The people in the diner probably thought Maya was in danger. They were not entirely wrong. But Maya William had not come to Gracewell as a lost traveler, a curious visitor, or a woman who did not understand where she was. She had come as a federal civil rights investigator. She had come with authorization, a protected channel, a recording protocol, and 3 days of notes already secured beyond the reach of Sheriff Wade Harlan. And now, because Harlan had been unable to resist showing the whole town who he really was, she had exactly what the case needed. The cruiser stopped. Mercer opened the back door and reached for her arm. Maya stepped out before he could pull her. Harlan walked ahead toward the entrance, still carrying himself like the building belonged to him. Maya looked once at the flag above the door, then at the badge on Harlan's back. A badge did not make a man justice. It only revealed what he chose to do with power. And in Gracewell, Alabama, Sheriff Wade Harlan had just made his choice in front of witnesses. But to understand why Maya was so calm while the town trembled, we have to go back 3 days to the quiet Tuesday morning when her gray SUV first rolled into Gracewell and the town began revealing what it had spent 14 years trying to hide. 3 days earlier, Maya William drove into Gracewell, Alabama at 8:17 on a Tuesday morning. She entered from the North Road in a gray SUV with Virginia plates, one suitcase in the back, one leather bag on the passenger seat, and a small notebook tucked inside the front pocket of her jacket. She did not arrive with a federal vehicle. She did not wear a suit. She did not carry herself like someone expecting to be recognized. That was the point. Gracewell was not the kind of town that trusted strangers quickly, but it was the kind that judged them fast. A woman, alone, black, young, out-of-state plates, no wedding ring, no obvious reason to be there. Maya knew what people would see before they saw her face. She preferred it that way. The first stop she made was the small motel beside Hollis Gas and Tire. She paid for 4 nights with a personal card tied to a private cover account, signed the register as Maya William, and accepted room 12 from a clerk who asked whether she was visiting family. "No, ma'am," Maya said. "Just passing through for a few days." The clerk, a woman in her late 50s with tired eyes and reading glasses on a chain, nodded but did not believe her. People who were just passing through usually stayed 1 night. People who stayed 4 nights in Gracewell either had business, trouble, or both. Maya carried her suitcase into the room, locked the door, checked the window, checked the connecting wall, and set her bag on the small desk. She took out her notebook, wrote the time of arrival, the motel name, the clerk's first name from the tag on her blouse, and the license plates she had seen in the lot. Then she stopped writing. The assignment had begun officially, months before she arrived. Complaints from Gracewell had come in slowly at first, then in clusters. A bakery cited repeatedly after refusing to sell property. Traffic stops concentrated in one part of town. Charges dropped after arrests, but only after people missed work, paid towing fees, or hired lawyers they could not afford. A white officer inside the department who had asked too many questions and suddenly found herself moved off patrol. None of it, alone, had been enough. Together, it had become a pattern. Maya had been sent to observe the pattern while the people responsible still believed no one important was watching. She left the motel at 9:05 and drove toward Main Street. Her first stop was Maggie's table. The diner was already half full when she entered. Maya chose a seat at the counter, ordered scrambled eggs, wheat toast, and coffee, and listened more than she looked. She heard a farmer complain about diesel prices. She heard 2 older women discuss a church potluck. She heard a man at the far end of the counter lower his voice when he said the name, Harlan. That interested her. The waitress, a white woman around 60 named Darlene, topped off Maya's coffee. "You visiting?" Darlene asked. "For a few days." "Family here?" "No, ma'am." "Work?" Maya gave a small, polite smile. "Something like that." Darlene accepted the answer, but filed it away. Maya could see that. In a town like Gracewell, questions were part conversation, part inventory. A few minutes later, Sheriff Wade Harlan walked in. No one announced him. No one needed to. The change was immediate and practical. People adjusted their posture. A man who had been speaking loudly about county taxes lowered his voice. Darlene set down the coffee pot and reached for a clean mug before Harlan asked for one. Maya did not stare. She watched the way trained people watch, through reflections, pauses, and reactions. Harlan greeted two men by name, asked an elderly woman about her hip surgery, and reminded the owner of the hardware store that his permit inspection was coming up soon. The hardware store owner laughed too quickly and said he had everything ready. Harlan smiled. The smile looked neighborly. The reminder did not. Maya wrote nothing. She finished her eggs, paid cash, left a fair tip, and walked out. By 10:30, she had crossed Main Street twice. She noted the courthouse, the sheriff's department, the town hall, the diner, the barber shop, the pharmacy, and the road leading toward South End. She did not take pictures. She did not need to. Her job was not to behave like an investigator. Her job was to give the town a chance to behave like itself. South End began 4 blocks past the post office. The sidewalks were older there. Several houses needed paint. The businesses were smaller and closer together. A garage, a beauty salon, a corner store, a barber shop, and Carter's sweet oven. Maya paused across from the bakery. A paper sign in the front window read, "Breakfast fundraiser Friday at Maggie's table. Help South End families fight unfair fines." That matched the file. Mrs. Evelyn Carter had owned Carter's sweet oven for nearly 30 years. Her husband, Joseph, had opened it with her after leaving his job at a tire plant. He had died 6 years earlier. Since then, the bakery had become more than a business. It was where people ordered birthday cakes, sweet potato pies for Thanksgiving, and peach cobbler for funerals. According to the complaint file, Evelyn had received 12 citations in 22 months. Signage violation, delivery vehicle violation, sidewalk obstruction, food handling reinspection, permit renewal delay. Individually, each citation looked small. Together, they formed pressure. Maya entered the bakery. Evelyn Carter stood behind the counter placing cinnamon rolls into a box. She had silver hair pulled back neatly, steady hands, and the guarded kindness of a woman who had learned to welcome strangers without trusting them too quickly. "Morning, baby," Evelyn said. "What can I get you?" "Coffee, if you have it. And one of those cinnamon rolls." "You picked right." Maya paid, then sat at one of the 2 small tables near the window. She did not introduce herself beyond her name. She asked no direct questions about fines, Harlan, or land. She let Evelyn decide whether to talk. Evelyn studied her after a few minutes. "You're not from here?" "No, ma'am." "Virginia?" Maya looked up. "Plates gave me away?" "Plates, shoes, and the way you keep track of doors." Maya almost smiled. "My father taught me that." "Smart man." "He was." Evelyn heard the past tense and did not press. That restraint told Maya something about her. Evelyn Carter was not careless with other people's grief. Before Maya could say more, a young man came in through the side door carrying 2 empty delivery crates. He was tall, 24, with close-cut hair and a work shirt that read Carter's Sweet Oven over the pocket. "Grandma, Mrs. Latham wants 2 dozen biscuits by Thursday," he said. Then he noticed Maya. "Sorry, didn't know you had a customer." "This is Miss William," Evelyn said. Passing through, the young man nodded politely. "Caleb Carter, Maya William." His handshake was firm, but his eyes went once to the street before returning to her. Maya noticed. Men, who had nothing to fear, did not check windows that way. A sheriff's cruiser rolled slowly past the bakery. Caleb stopped moving. Evelyn pretended not to notice. Maya did not turn her head until the cruiser had already passed. Through the reflection in the bakery glass, she saw Deputy Kyle Mercer at the wheel. He was looking in. Caleb set the crates down harder than necessary. Evelyn said quietly, "Don't start your day angry." "I didn't start it," Caleb said. Maya filed that away too. She left the bakery at 11:12, with half the cinnamon roll, wrapped in a napkin, and 3 new notes in her head. Evelyn was careful. Caleb was watched, and Mercer was already patrolling South End before noon. At 12:30, Maya returned to Main Street and sat for 20 minutes on a bench near the courthouse. She watched Harlan leave the sheriff's department and cross to town hall. A man in a navy suit met him at the side entrance. They did not shake hands. They spoke briefly, then went inside. Maya recognized the man from a public filing she had reviewed the night before. Raymond Cole, regional representative for Lakefront Renewal Partners. The company had purchased 5 properties near South End in the last 14 months. 3 more owners were listed as in negotiation. Evelyn Carter's bakery sat at the corner of the most valuable block. Now Harlan and Cole were meeting in daylight at Town Hall. Not proof, but useful. At 1:45, Maya returned to the motel. She closed the curtains, sat at the desk, and wrote her notes in careful order. 8:17 Rival. Motel clerk, curious, non-hostile. Diner reaction to Harlan. Compliance behavior. Harlan uses permit language casually as pressure. Carter's sweet oven. Active fundraiser. Mercer observed South End Bakery. Caleb Carter visibly reactive to patrol presence. Harlan met Raymond Cole, Lakefront Renewal Partners, at Town Hall side entrance. She stopped, then added one more line. Town quiet, but not peaceful. That was an important distinction. Quiet could be created by trust. It could also be created by fear. Gracewell had the second kind. Maya had felt it in the diner, in the bakery, in Caleb's jaw, in Darlene's careful questions, in the way people spoke normally until Harlan's name entered the air. At 3:10, Maya called her supervisor through a secure line. Initial impression? The supervisor asked. Pattern appears active, Maya said. Not historical. Current. Direct contact? Limited. I've observed Harlan, Mercer, Evelyn Carter, Caleb Carter, and Raymond Cole. Risk level? Moderate for now. For you? Or for the witnesses? Maya paused. For the witnesses. For me. Not yet. Her supervisor understood what she meant. Maya was not the target yet. To Harlan, she was still just a stranger. A young black woman with Virginia plates and too many questions behind her eyes. That would change if she spoke too soon. Do not force contact, the supervisor said. I won't. Let them choose. I know. After the call ended, Maya sat quietly for a moment. Let them choose. That had always been the method. Do not provoke. Do not invent misconduct. Do not push a man into showing what is not already there. Walk in plainly. Ask lawful questions. Observe ordinary pressure. Let power reveal its habits. But Maya also knew the cost of waiting. Waiting meant watching people like Evelyn carry fear another day. Waiting meant watching Caleb swallow anger because one wrong word could become a charge. Waiting meant listening to old pain repeat itself in new voices. Her father had once waited for justice too. He had waited through an arrest, a lost job, a damaged name, and an apology that came after it could no longer repair what had been broken. Maya opened her notebook again. At the top of a clean page, she wrote, Gracewell, Alabama. Then beneath it, who is protected? Who is pressured? Who profits? Those 3 questions had solved more cases than anger ever had. Near sunset, she drove once more through South End. Evelyn was locking the bakery. Caleb was loading the delivery vehicle. A patrol cruiser sat half a block away, idling. Maya did not stop. Not yet. She drove back to the motel, parked facing the exit, and looked once at the road behind her. No one had followed her closely enough to matter. But Mercer had seen her. Harlan had seen enough people see her. By morning, the sheriff would likely know her name, her plates, and the motel where she was staying. That was fine. She had not come to hide. She had come to be underestimated. Inside room 12, Maya placed the notebook beside the bed, removed a small recorder from her bag, checked its battery, and set it back exactly where she could reach it. Then she took out an old photograph from the inside pocket of her suitcase. Her father stood in the picture wearing his army uniform, one hand resting on Maya's shoulder when she was still a child. He looked proud, tired, and hopeful in the way men looked when they believed their country might still become worthy of their service. Maya touched the corner of the photograph. Don't worry, she whispered. I'm not here to hate the law. If you also feel for Maya, for Mrs. Evelyn, and for all the people who have had to stay silent too long in the face of injustice, please hit like, so this story can reach more people. And comment below to let me know where you are watching this video from, because who knows, someone very close to you may also be listening to this story right now, still believing that justice is worth waiting for. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next new stories. She put the picture away and turned off the lamp. Gracewell slept that night under the same silence it had mistaken for order for 14 years. But Maya William had already seen enough to know the silence was not empty. It was full of names, and the next afternoon, one of those names would be forced onto the side of a road with his hands on the hood of a delivery car, while Deputy Kyle Mercer reminded Southend exactly who he thought had the right to stand upright in Gracewell. The next afternoon began with a delivery list. Caleb Carter left Carter's Sweet Oven at 2:18 p.m. with 4 bakery boxes stacked in the passenger seat and 2 insulated bags on the floorboard. His grandmother had written the names in blue ink on a torn piece of receipt paper, the same way she had done for years. Mrs. Latham, 2 dozen biscuits. Deacon Morris, 1 sweet potato pie. Maggie's table, 3 peach cobblers for Friday. Gracewell Baptist Church, 1 tray of cinnamon rolls. Caleb checked the list twice before pulling away from the curb. He was careful about everything now. Seat belt, turn signal, speed limit, full stop at every sign, both hands visible on the wheel when a patrol car passed. That was what Gracewell had taught him, not how to live, how to avoid giving men like Deputy Kyle Mercer a reason. Maya William was walking out of the corner store when she saw Caleb's delivery car pass by. She recognized him from the bakery, then noticed the sheriff's cruiser ease away from the opposite curb half a block behind him. Mercer was driving. Maya stopped beside a newspaper box and watched. The cruiser followed Caleb through the intersection. Not fast, not obvious to anyone who was not looking for it. Caleb turned right onto Mill Road toward the church. Mercer turned right behind him. Maya did not hurry. She crossed to her SUV, got in, and followed from a distance. 2 minutes later, the cruiser lights flashed. Caleb pulled over immediately. Maya parked on the opposite side of the street, far enough away not to crowd the stop, close enough to see and hear if voices were raised. She stepped out of the SUV with her phone in her jacket pocket and her hands empty. Mercer got out of the cruiser and approached Caleb's driver's side window. He moved slowly, with no urgency, like a man enjoying the space between authority and consequence. Caleb rolled down the window. "Afternoon, Deputy," Caleb said. Mercer leaned slightly toward the window. "Step out of the vehicle." Caleb's shoulders tightened. "Can I ask why?" "You can step out. I'm making deliveries for my grandmother. I didn't ask what you were doing. I told you to step out." Caleb opened the door and got out. He kept his hands visible. Mercer pointed to the hood, hands on the car. Caleb looked toward the bakery boxes through the windshield, then back at Mercer. "Deputy, those are food deliveries. I have customers waiting." "Hands on the car, Caleb." Caleb obeyed. Maya stood near the sidewalk, watching. She did not speak yet. She let the event develop. She needed to know whether Mercer would state a lawful basis on his own. He did not. He walked around Caleb's vehicle, glanced into the passenger seat, then toward the insulated bags. He did not appear to inspect a broken light, an expired tag, a moving violation, or anything connected to roadway safety. He returned to Caleb. "Where are you headed?" "Church first, then Maggie's." "Why?" Caleb turned his head slightly. "Because that's where the orders go." Mercer moved closer. "You getting smart?" "No, sir." Maya heard the "sir." She also heard what it cost Caleb to say it. Mercer looked toward her then. His eyes narrowed in recognition. "You again." Maya took 2 steps closer, stopping at the edge of the sidewalk. "Deputy Mercer," she said. "What is the legal basis for the stop?" Mercer straightened. "This is police business. I understand that. I am asking what violation led to the traffic stop." Caleb closed his eyes briefly, not in frustration at Maya, but in fear of what her question might trigger. Mercer pointed at her. "Keep walking." Maya stayed where she was. "I am not interfering. I am observing from a public sidewalk. You're interfering by running your mouth. I have asked one question." Mercer's lips tightened. "Vehicle matched a suspicious description." "What description?" "A vehicle involved in possible illegal deliveries." Maya looked at Caleb's car. The bakery logo was printed plainly on the side door. Illegal deliveries of what? Mercer stared at her. Caleb said, "It's biscuits and pie." "Shut up," Mercer snapped. Maya's voice remained even. "Deputy, food delivery for a licensed bakery is not suspicious activity." Mercer turned fully toward her now. "You a lawyer?" "No." "Then quit acting like one." "I'm acting like a citizen who understands that a traffic stop requires reasonable suspicion of a specific violation." Mercer took a step toward her. "Lady, you don't want to test me." "I'm not testing you. I'm asking you to say out loud why this man was stopped." Before Mercer could answer, a second cruiser pulled up behind his. Sheriff Wade Harlan stepped out. He looked first at Caleb, hands on the hood, then at Mercer, then at Maya. Maya noticed the order of his attention. Control first, deputy second, witness last. Harlan walked toward them with measured calm. "Miss William," he said, "you seem to have a habit of appearing where you don't belong." Maya turned toward him. "Sheriff, Mr. Carter was stopped while delivering food for his grandmother's bakery. I asked Deputy Mercer to identify the violation." Harlan gave Mercer a brief look. Mercer said, "Vehicle matched a suspicious delivery complaint." "Who made the complaint?" Maya asked. Harlan looked back at her. "That is not information we share with bystanders during an active stop." "Was there a report number?" Harlan's face stayed controlled. "You ask a lot of questions for someone with no role here. My role is simple. I am witnessing a public stop involving a man who appears to have been pulled over without a stated traffic violation." Harlan stepped closer to Caleb. "Caleb, you have anything in the vehicle we need to know about?" "No, Sheriff." "You sure?" "Yes, sir." "Mind if Deputy Mercer takes a look?" Caleb hesitated. Maya spoke before he answered. "Caleb, you have the right to refuse consent to a search." Mercer snapped. "That's interference." "No," Maya said. "That is a correct statement of his rights." Harlan's eyes hardened. "Miss William, I would be very careful." Maya looked at Caleb. "Whether you consent is your decision." Caleb swallowed. His hands were still flat on the hood. "I don't consent to a search," he said. Mercer laughed under his breath. Harlan smiled without warmth. "You hear that, Kyle? He doesn't consent." Mercer moved to the passenger side anyway and looked through the window. He tried the door handle. It was locked. Caleb turned his head. "Deputy, I said I don't consent." Mercer ignored him. Harlan watched Maya watching Mercer. That was when Maya understood the real purpose of the stop. It was not the car. It was not the deliveries. It was a message. To Caleb. To Evelyn. To South End. And now, perhaps, to her. Harlan said, "Caleb, your grandmother's been stirring up a lot of attention this week." Caleb kept his voice tight. "My grandmother is trying to keep her business. Businesses have rules. She follows them." Harlan moved closer. "People who follow rules usually don't have so many problems." Caleb's jaw clenched. Maya saw his anger rising again and stepped in. "Sheriff, if Mrs. Carter has a compliance issue, your department can issue written notice through the proper channel. Stopping her grandson during bakery deliveries suggests retaliation." Harlan turned to her. "Retaliation is a big word. It fits big patterns." Mercer came back around from the passenger side. "Sheriff, we can cite him for failure to cooperate." "No, you cannot," Maya said. Mercer pointed at her again. "I'm about done with you." Harlan raised one hand slightly, not to protect Maya, but to slow Mercer down. Then Harlan looked at Caleb. "You can go." Caleb did not move at first. Harlan said, "I said, you can go, unless you want to keep making this difficult." Caleb slowly lifted his hands from the hood. Mercer stepped close to him and spoke low enough that Maya could barely hear. "Tell your grandmother Friday is a bad idea." Caleb looked at him. "What?" Mercer smiled. "That fundraiser. Bad idea." Maya heard enough. She took one step closer. "Deputy Mercer, are you warning Mr. Carter about a lawful fundraiser?" Mercer looked back at her. "I'm telling him to make smart choices." "No," Maya said. "You are using a traffic stop to intimidate him about an unrelated community event." Harlan's voice cut in. "Miss William, this stop is over." "Then I'll make sure my notes reflect that." There it was. Harlan did not miss it. "Your notes?" Maya paused just long enough for him to notice. My personal notes. About Gracewell. About what I observe. Mercer scoffed. You writing a book? Maya looked at him. Something like that. Harlan studied her more carefully now. She saw the calculation in his face. Her name, her plates, her questions, her confidence. He was trying to decide whether she was merely irritating or something more inconvenient. Maya gave him nothing else. Caleb got back into his car. His hands were not steady when he started the engine. He pulled away slowly, obeying every signal, every inch of road. Mercer watched him go. Harlan watched Maya. You staying long, Miss William? A few days. Gracewell doesn't offer much for visitors. I'm finding it informative. That, so? Yes, Sheriff. Harlan took a step closer, lowering his voice, but not his threat. Small towns can be difficult when people misunderstand them. Maya held his gaze. They can also become dangerous when people understand them too well. Mercer shifted beside the cruiser. Harlan's smile returned, thin and controlled. You have a good afternoon. You too, Sheriff. Maya turned and walked back toward her SUV without rushing. She knew better than to look over her shoulder too soon. Men like Harlan watched for signs of fear. They collected them. They used them later. Only when she reached her vehicle did she glance at the side mirror. Harlan and Mercer were still standing by the cruisers. Mercer was talking. Harlan was not. That mattered. Back at the motel, Maya sat at the small desk and wrote the stop from memory while every detail remained fresh. Time, 2:36 p.m. Location, Mill Road, near Gracewell Baptist. Subject, Caleb Carter, 24, black male, bakery delivery driver. Stopping officer, Deputy Kyle Mercer. Second officer, Sheriff Wade Harlan. Dated basis, suspicious delivery complaint. No specific complainant. Report number, violation, or vehicle description provided. Search attempt, after refusal of consent. Verbal warning tied to Friday fundraiser. Possible intimidation connected to Evelyn Carter. Carter's sweet oven. South End property pressure. She stopped writing and flexed her hand once. The old anger was there. Not hot. Not wild. Just present. She had seen Caleb's hands on the hood. She had heard the way Mercer said, boy, without needing to say it this time. She had seen Harlan use calm as a weapon, the same way other men used volume. Her father's case had started with a stop too, a description that did not match, a question that became attitude that became suspicion, suspicion that became cuffs. Maya closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them and wrote one more line. Harlan did not correct Mercer. Harlan directed the pressure. That distinction mattered. Mercer was not a rogue deputy creating trouble on his own. He was an instrument. Harlan was the hand. At 4:05, Maya received a call from her supervisor. Anything new? Yes, she said. Direct observation of a pretextual stop involving Caleb Carter. Escalation, controlled, but clear. Did you engage? I asked for the legal basis of the stop and advised the subject of his right to refuse consent. A brief silence. Maya, I stayed within public observation boundaries. I know you know the line. I'm asking whether they know you know it. They're beginning to. That increases your risk. Yes. Do you want extraction? Maya looked at her notebook. Caleb's name sat beneath Evelyn's. No. Her supervisor did not answer immediately. Maya added, they are not finished. Harlan is too comfortable. Mercer is too eager. If I leave now, we have a pattern, but not the decisive act. And if you become the decisive act? Maya did not respond at once. She thought of Caleb's fists on the hood, Evelyn's careful eyes, the fundraiser sign in the bakery window, the way people in Maggie's table had lowered their voices when Harlan entered. Then she said, then we document it. The supervisor exhaled softly. Stay inside protocol. I will. And Maya? Yes. Do not let this become about your father. Maya's grip tightened around the phone. For a second, she wanted to say it already was. Instead, she said, understood. After the call ended, she sat in the quiet motel room until the light outside began to fade. Then she opened a clean page in the notebook and wrote 3 names. Evelyn Carter, Caleb Carter, Wade Harlan. Under Harlan's name, she added, does not fear being watched. Not yet. That night, Caleb delivered the last of the bakery orders 2 hours late. Mrs. Latham still paid. Deacon Morris told him to keep his head up. At Maggie's table, the owner accepted the cobblers for Friday and asked whether his grandmother was all right. Caleb said yes, because that was easier than telling the truth. But by the time he returned to Carter's sweet oven, the story of the stop had already traveled through South End. Not loudly, not publicly, in phone calls, in porch conversations, in lowered voices after Bible study. A stranger from Virginia had questioned Mercer. A black woman had told Caleb he could refuse a search. Sheriff Harlan had been there. And for once, someone had written it down. By morning, Gracewell would know Maya Williams' name, and Sheriff Wade Harlan would begin asking the question men like him only asked when their authority felt the first small crack beneath it. Who is she? By Wednesday morning, Gracewell knew Maya Williams' name, not because she had introduced herself loudly, not because she had made a speech, because Deputy Kyle Mercer had pulled over Caleb Carter on Mill Road, and a young black woman from Virginia had asked the one question people in South End had been punished for asking too many times. What law did he break? At Carter's sweet oven, the question arrived before Maya did. Evelyn Carter heard it first from Mrs. Latham, who came in for biscuits and lowered her voice before she even reached the counter. Then, Deacon Morris mentioned it while picking up his pie. Then Maggie Duval called from the diner and asked if Caleb was all right. By noon, Evelyn had stopped pretending she did not understand what was happening. Caleb stood in the back room, tying bakery boxes with white string. His movements were careful, but Evelyn knew her grandson. He was angry. He had been angry since the stop, not the kind of anger that burned hot and disappeared, but the kind that settled into the bones of a man who had been humiliated in public and told to call it procedure. "You're pulling that string too tight," Evelyn said. Caleb looked down. The cardboard box had bent slightly under his hands. "Sorry." She watched him loosen it. "You didn't do anything wrong yesterday." He gave a short laugh without humor. "That ever matter to them?" Evelyn did not answer right away. She had spent years trying to teach Caleb dignity without teaching him bitterness. It was harder than people imagined. Harder still in a town where dignity could be mistaken for attitude if the wrong deputy was having a bad day. Before she could speak, the bell over the front door sounded. Maya Williams stepped inside. She wore the same brown jacket from the day before, her hair pulled back, her expression composed. She did not look like a woman who had started a rumor. She looked like a woman who had come to finish a conversation. Evelyn came out from behind the counter. "Miss William, Maya is fine, Mom." Evelyn studied her face. "You want coffee?" "Yes, please. And if you have a few minutes, I'd like to ask about the citations." Caleb came from the back room. "You writing that book Deputy Mercer joked about?" Maya looked at him. "Something more useful than a book." Evelyn glanced toward the window. "That kind of answer can get people hurt around here." "I know." "No," Evelyn said softly. "You know laws. You know reports. Maybe you even know men like Harlan on paper. But knowing this town is different." Maya accepted that without offense. Then, "Help me understand it." For a moment, Evelyn did not move. Then she turned the sign on the door from open to back in 15 minutes. Though they both knew she might not reopen that quickly. She poured coffee into 3 mugs and led Maya to a small table near the rear wall. Caleb remained standing. Evelyn pointed to the chair beside her. "Sit down, baby. If this is about us, you hear it too." Caleb sat. Maya took out her notebook, then paused. "I won't write anything you don't want recorded." Evelyn smiled faintly. "People like us don't get protected by things staying unrecorded." That was the first time Maya saw clearly how tired Evelyn Carter was. Not weak, not defeated, tired. The kind of tired that came from filling out forms, saving receipts, calling offices that did not call back, smiling at people who wanted your land, and waking up every morning to do it all again because giving up would hand them exactly what they wanted. "It started after Joseph died," Evelyn said. "Your husband?" "Yes, 6 years ago. But the real pressure started 2 years back. A man from Lakefront Renewal Partners came in here wearing a suit, too nice for this part of town. Said they were buying property for a development. Condos, lake access, restaurants. He said South End was about to be revitalized. Caleb looked at the table. That's what they call it when they want people gone. Evelyn nodded. He offered me money for the building. More than I expected. Less than it was worth. I told him no. Was Sheriff Harlan involved then? Maya asked. Not in the room. Not at first. When did that change? 2 weeks later. I got a notice about my sign. Said it extended too far over the sidewalk. Same sign had been there 19 years, Caleb said. Granddad hung it himself. Evelyn looked toward the front window, where the sign for Carter's sweet oven could be seen from inside, painted in warm yellow letters. Then came the food handling reinspection. Then a parking complaint. Then a delivery zone issue. Then the fire marshal said he had to check capacity, though we barely have space for 4 customers to stand at once. Maya wrote carefully. Were the citations issued by the sheriff's department or town offices? Both. That's how they do it. One hand writes the warning. The other hand says it's out of their control. Do you have copies? Evelyn stood and went into the back. She returned with a shoebox. It was the kind of shoebox older people kept because throwing away a good box felt wasteful. Inside were folded notices, receipts, letters, business cards, envelopes, and handwritten notes with dates in the corner. Maya did not touch it at first. She looked at Evelyn. May I? Evelyn pushed the box toward her. I kept everything. Maya opened the first notice, then the next, then the next. The pattern was not subtle once placed in order. Citation, inspection, warning, delay, follow-up notice, fee, another offer from Lakefront Renewal Partners, another inspection, pressure with paperwork. Caleb leaned forward. They stopped me 6 times this year. Traffic stops? Maya asked. Yes, ma'am. Any citations? 1 for a brake light. 1 for rolling a stop sign I didn't roll through. The rest were warnings. Searches? He hesitated. Twice. Consent? Caleb looked ashamed, though he had no reason to be. They asked like I didn't have a choice. Maya's pen stopped for a moment. That was how coercion lived. Not always in force. Sometimes in the careful removal of options, until a person agreed to something they had never freely chosen. Evelyn said, I told him to be polite. I told him to say sir. I told him to keep his hands where they could see. I told him all the things my mother told my brothers. Her voice tightened. And I hate that I had to. Maya looked at her. My mother taught me the same things. Evelyn watched her differently after that. Not with trust yet, but with recognition. Caleb asked, Why are you really here? The question hung there. Maya could have lied. She was authorized to maintain cover. She was expected to protect the investigation, but there were ways to answer truthfully without exposing what could not yet be said. I'm here because enough people reported enough things that someone finally had to pay attention. Evelyn lowered her eyes. Federal? Maya did not answer. Evelyn looked up again, and Maya saw that she had not missed the silence. Caleb sat back slowly. Is Harlan in trouble? Not because I say so, Maya said. Only if the record proves what people have lived through. The record, Caleb said. Yes. And yesterday? Yesterday helped. Evelyn's hand tightened around her mug. I don't want Caleb used as bait. He won't be. I mean it. So do I. Evelyn leaned closer. You're young, Maya. Younger than I expected anybody sent to help us would be. And maybe that's unfair of me to say. But Harlan has been sheriff here almost half your life. He knows judges, county people, business owners. He knows who drinks too much and who needs a permit, and who has a nephew with a warrant in Mobile. He doesn't just arrest people. He squeezes them. Maya nodded. That is why I need the pattern, not just the pain. Evelyn's eyes filled, but she did not cry. I can give you pain all day. I need dates. Evelyn gave a small, sad smile. Then you came to the right old woman. For the next hour, Evelyn walked Maya through the shoebox. March 3. First offer from Lakefront Renewal Partners. March 19. Sign violation. April say. Second offer. April 11. Food reinspection. May 2. Delivery zone citation. May 17. Caleb stopped on Pine Street. June 9. Permit renewal delayed. June 21. Third offer. July 2. Sheriff's Department. Courtesy visit. Maya listened, asked short questions, and wrote only what could be verified. At one point, Evelyn stopped and picked up a faded photograph from the shoebox. It showed her late husband standing in front of the bakery on opening day. He was smiling, one hand on the door, the other holding a pair of oversized scissors for the ribbon cutting. That was Joseph, Evelyn said. He worked 28 years at the tire plant, saved every extra dollar, said he wanted a place where folks could walk in and feel like somebody was glad to see them. Caleb looked away. Maya understood then that Carter's sweet oven was not just property. It was labor, marriage, memory, proof that a black family in Gracewell had built something honest and intended to keep it. Evelyn placed the photograph back in the box. When that man offered to buy this building, he said I should be proud. Said Joseph and I had been part of South End's history. History, like we were already gone. Maya wrote nothing for that. Some things mattered too much to reduce immediately into notes. After a while, she asked, "Did Sheriff Harlan ever personally tell you to sell?" Evelyn nodded. Not directly like that. He came in one morning, bought a coffee he didn't drink, and said women my age should enjoy peace while they still could. Said business ownership was a burden. Said some offers only come once, Caleb said. That was the same week they towed my car. Maya looked at him. For what reason? Expired tag. It wasn't expired. Do you have proof? Caleb stood, went to a drawer, and returned with a folder. I started keeping copies after Grandma told me to stop trusting memory. Maya took the folder. The tag was current. The tow fee had been paid anyway. She added it to the timeline. By the time they finished, the afternoon had shifted toward evening. Evelyn reopened the bakery, but no new customers came in. People had learned to give certain conversations privacy. Maya gathered her notes. Mrs. Carter, I need you to understand something. If this goes forward, Harlan may increase pressure. Evelyn laughed once, quietly. Baby, what do you think he's been doing? He may try to discredit you. He already has. He may go after Caleb harder. At that, Evelyn's face changed. Caleb spoke before she could. He's already doing that too. Maya looked at him. I need you both careful. No arguments with deputies. No consent to searches. Save every notice. Write down every contact. Time. Place. Exact words if you remember. Caleb nodded. Evelyn said, And you? What about me? Who keeps you careful? The question caught Maya off guard. For a second, she thought of her supervisor. Protocol. Secure channels. Extraction plans. Then she thought of her mother sitting at a kitchen table years ago, sorting documents into piles, trying to keep grief neat enough for a lawyer to understand. My father used to, Maya said. Evelyn waited. He was arrested when I was 9 for something he didn't do. He was cleared later, but later doesn't give back what gets taken. In the beginning, Evelyn's expression softened. What did it take from him? Maya looked toward the front window. His job. Some friends. His sleep. His belief that service would protect him from suspicion. And from you? Maya did not answer quickly. Then she said, My childhood ended on the porch that day. No one spoke for a moment. Evelyn reached across the table and put her hand over Maya's. It was not dramatic. It was not pity. It was one woman recognizing a wound in another. Then don't let Harlan turn that little girl into the one making decisions, Evelyn said. Maya looked at her. She gets angry. I expect she does. She wants to win. Evelyn squeezed her hand. Justice isn't the same as winning. Maya held that sentence in silence. Justice isn't the same as winning. She knew it. Professionally. She had said versions of it to witnesses, victims, grieving mothers, angry brothers, exhausted business owners. But hearing it from Evelyn Carter, inside a bakery that smelled like cinnamon and old courage, made it land differently. At 6:12, Pastor Samuel Brooks entered the bakery. He removed his hat, nodded to Evelyn, then looked at Maya. I wondered when you two would find each other. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. You knew? I suspected. Maya stood. Pastor Brooks. Maya William. He said her name like he had already measured its weight. Evelyn looked between them. You two need to talk, Pastor Brooks said. I think we do. Maya followed him out the back door and across the narrow lot toward Gracewell Baptist Church. Caleb stayed with Evelyn, but his eyes followed Maya until she disappeared beyond the side gate. Behind the church, Pastor Brooks led her to the small cemetery where generations of South End families were buried. He did not give a speech at first. He let her read the names: Carter, Morris, Latham, Brooks, men and women who had lived, worked, raised children, paid taxes, buried parents, and still had to fight to be treated as full citizens in the town they helped build. Pastor Brooks stopped beside a weathered headstone. This man lost his house in 1998 over fines that should never have held up. By the time anyone admitted the process was wrong, he was already living with his daughter in Birmingham. They walked a little farther. This woman cleaned rooms at the motel 31 years. Her son was arrested twice. Charges dropped both times. Folks still whispered, "Another stone." This one signed the first complaint against Harlan's department. After that, every permit connected to his barbershop slowed down. Maya listened. The pastor turned to her. "You're thinking about leaving." Maya did not deny it. "I'm thinking I may be too close to this." "Because of your father?" She looked at him sharply. Evelyn must have told him nothing. Maya knew that. This was not gossip. It was discernment. Pastor Brooks tapped his cane once against the ground. "I've been a pastor 42 years. Pain recognizes pain before names are exchanged." Maya looked away. "I can't let my history contaminate the case." "No. But you also can't pretend your history didn't teach you where to look." That struck her. Pastor Brooks continued. "Harlan counts on people being tired. He counts on good folks deciding peace is safer than truth. He counts on every person standing alone. I can't promise what will happen. I'm not asking you to promise victory." "Then what are you asking?" He looked toward the rows of graves. "Stand still long enough for liars to reveal themselves." Maya said nothing. The evening air cooled around them. From the bakery, she could faintly hear Caleb closing the metal register drawer. She thought of Evelyn's shoebox, Joseph's photograph, Caleb's hands on the hood of his car, her father on the porch. She had called her supervisor that morning, intending to request reassignment. Now the idea felt like abandonment, dressed as professionalism. Maya took out her notebook. On a clean page, she wrote, "Sheriff Wade Harlan, pattern of racial targeting." Then beneath it, Evelyn Carter, property pressure. Caleb Carter, pretextual stops. South End, displacement. Pastor Brooks watched her write. When she finished, he said, "You staying?" Maya closed the notebook. "Yes." "Good. It may get worse before it gets better." Pastor Brooks nodded. "Most true things do." That night, Maya returned to room 12 at the motel and placed Evelyn's timeline beside her own notes. She scanned key documents through a secure app, uploaded them, and marked the file priority. Then she sat on the edge of the bed with her father's photograph in her hand. For the first time since arriving in Gracewell, she allowed herself to say the truth out loud. "This one is going to hurt." The room gave no answer. Maya put the photograph away, opened her notebook one last time, and under Harlan's name added a final line. "Do not move too soon. Let the system show itself." By morning, she would begin listening to South End, one voice at a time, and the stories waiting for her would prove that Evelyn Carter was not the exception. She was the pattern. By Thursday morning, Maya Williams stopped waiting for Gracewell to speak loudly. She had learned enough by then to understand the town did not confess in public. It confessed in half sentences, in lowered eyes, in old receipts saved in kitchen drawers, in men who laughed before answering because telling the truth too plainly still felt dangerous. So she listened the way Gracewell required, patiently, one voice at a time. Her first stop was not the sheriff's department or town hall. It was Monroe's garage on the edge of South End, a narrow brick building with 3 service bays and a hand-painted sign that had faded under years of Alabama sun. The owner, James Monroe, was 63, black, and had hands marked by 4 decades of honest work. He stood behind a counter covered with invoices, spark plugs, and a radio playing low gospel music. Maya introduced herself only as Miss William. James looked at her for a long moment. "You the woman who talked back to Mercer?" I asked him a question. "That's talking back in Gracewell. I'm learning that." He gave her a tired smile. then nodded toward a stool near the counter. What do you want to know? Whether Sheriff Harlan's department has caused problems for your business. James did not answer immediately. He reached under the counter and pulled out a folder. Depends who's asking. Someone who writes things down. He looked at the folder, then at her. Writing things down ever change anything? Sometimes. And when it doesn't, then at least no one can say it never happened. That answer seemed to satisfy him enough. James opened the folder. He told her about the first inspection, 3 weeks after he refused an offer from Lakefront Renewal Partners. Then came a fire lane warning. Then a complaint about cars parked too close to the sidewalk. Then 2 customers were stopped by deputies after leaving his shop. 1 never came back. They didn't shut me down, James said. They just made folks wonder if coming here was worth the trouble. Maya wrote that exactly. They didn't shut me down. They made folks wonder. James tapped 1 invoice. This one hurt the most. County delayed my business license renewal for 46 days. Said paperwork was missing. It wasn't missing. Same paperwork I'd filed every year. Did Sheriff Harlan contact you during that time? James nodded. Came by. Said maybe I should think about selling while the market was good. Maya looked up. His words? Close enough. I need as exact as you can remember. James closed his eyes for a moment. He said, a man your age ought to know when a burden becomes a blessing in disguise. Then he looked around my shop like it already belonged to somebody else. Maya wrote it down. Before she left, James put both hands on the counter and leaned toward her. You be careful with Harlan. He doesn't always push from the front. What do you mean? He'll find the side door. Job. Permit. Family. Reputation. Everybody has something they can't afford to lose. Maya thanked him and walked out with copies of 2 notices and permission to follow up. Her next stop was a small beauty salon 2 blocks over. The owner, Denise Harper, was 52, with silver braided into her hair and a voice that carried the authority of a woman who had raised children, buried a mother, and run payroll through recessions. Denise did not want to talk at first. I've got customers, she said. I can come back. Denise looked toward the 2 women under dryers, then back at Maya. No. If I say come back, I'll talk myself out of it. She led Maya to a narrow office in the back. Denise's story was simple and familiar. Her nephew, Marcus, 27, had been stopped 3 times walking home from work. No arrest, no charges, just warnings, just questions, just enough humiliation to make him take longer routes home. He works night shift at the warehouse, Denise said. Man is tired. He's not looking for trouble. He's looking for his bed. Did he file a complaint? Denise laughed once. Against Harlan's people? Here? Maya waited. Denise's face hardened. I told him not to. That's what keeps me up. I told my nephew to swallow it because I was scared they'd make it worse. Maya did not offer comfort too quickly. She had learned that comfort, when given too soon, could sound like dismissal. Instead, she asked, do you know the dates? Denise opened her phone and began scrolling. My sister texted me every time. By the time Maya left, she had 3 dates, 2 officer names, and 1 more piece of the map. The stops were not random. They clustered around people connected to families who owned property, businesses, or public influence in South End. At noon, Maya bought a sandwich from a corner store and sat at a small table near the front window. She reviewed her notes while pretending to read a local paper. James Monroe, Denise Harper, Marcus Harper, Evelyn Carter, Caleb Carter. Same methods, different doors. A citation here, a warning there. A stop that became a story people told their children as instruction. By 1:30, she was at the home of Loretta Fields, a 42-year-old single mother who worked nights at a senior care facility. Loretta had been cited for loitering while waiting at a bus stop after her shift. She showed Maya the citation from her kitchen table. I had my lunch bag in my hand, Loretta said. Uniform on. Name badge right here. Bus was 12 minutes late. Deputy said there had been complaints about people hanging around. Which deputy? Mercer. Did he know you were waiting for the bus? I told him. What did he say? Loretta swallowed. He said, then wait like you've got somewhere to be. Maya's pen paused. The sentence was small, but its meaning was not. Wait like you've got somewhere to be. as if a black woman in scrubs at dawn had to perform worthiness even while standing still. Loretta looked embarrassed after saying it. I know it doesn't sound like much. It sounds like what it was, Maya said. Loretta's eyes lifted. And what was it? A reminder that he believed he could decide whether you belonged in a public place. Loretta's mouth tightened. She nodded once, then looked away. My mama used to say Gracewell had two sets of sidewalks, the ones everybody could walk on, and the ones we had to explain ourselves on. Maya wrote that down too, with Loretta's permission. At 3, she met a retired school teacher named Arthur Bell in the Fellowship Hall of Gracewell Baptist Church. He was 69, wore a pressed shirt despite the heat, and had the careful diction of a man who had spent his life teaching young people that words mattered. Arthur had signed a complaint against Harlan's department 3 years earlier, after watching deputies search a young man's truck outside the church. What happened after you signed? Maya asked. My home alarm permit renewal stalled. Then my nephew's barbershop had an inspection. Then a deputy came by asking if I had seen any suspicious gatherings around the church. He smiled, but without humor. Suspicious gatherings? At a church. Did you withdraw the complaint? No. What happened to it? Nothing. Which is a kind of answer. Maya nodded. Arthur leaned back. People think injustice has to announce itself. Sometimes it just delays you, misfiles you, rechecks you, pulls you over and lets you go with a warning so there's no wound to photograph. Maya looked at him. That is one of the clearest descriptions I've heard. I taught history, Miss William. History is mostly people pretending patterns are accidents. She wrote that down. By late afternoon, Maya's notebook had become heavier than paper. It carried 27 names, 11 business complaints, 8 traffic stops, 4 delayed permits, 2 suspicious code inspections, and 1 unmistakable theme. South End was being pressured, not randomly, not loudly, deliberately. Maya returned to her SUV outside the church and called her supervisor through the secure line. Status? The supervisor asked. Pattern is broader than Carter's bakery. How broad? At least 5 business owners or property-connected families. Methods include pretextual traffic stops, code enforcement pressure, permit delays, and informal intimidation. Can you tie it to land acquisition? Not yet, with enough strength. But the affected properties align with Lakefront Renewal Partners' purchase area. Any direct threats? Several implied. One tied to the Friday fundraiser. Her supervisor was silent for a moment. You understand what this means? Yes. It means Harlan may not be acting alone. I know. Local government? Possibly town office. County board member. Maybe code enforcement. I don't have names confirmed yet. Do not overreach. I won't. And do not make yourself the center of the case. Maya looked across the street at Carter's sweet oven. Evelyn was helping an older customer at the counter. Caleb was loading boxes into the delivery car. I may already be visible. Visible is not the same as exposed. It becomes exposed when Harlan decides visibility is a threat. Has he? Not yet. But even as Maya said it, she saw a cruiser turn slowly onto the block. Mercer. He drove past the bakery, then past Maya's parked SUV. He did not stop. He did not need to. His message was the movement itself. I see you. Maya watched the cruiser continue toward Main Street. Her supervisor heard the silence. What happened? Mercer just passed. Coincidence? No. Return to the motel. After one more stop. Maya, it's with Pastor Brooks. Controlled environment. Make it quick. Maya ended the call and crossed toward the church office. Pastor Brooks was waiting inside with 2 cups of coffee. Long day? He asked. Long enough. He motioned to the chair across from his desk. They talking? Yes. Good. Some are scared they said too much. They probably did. Truth feels dangerous the first time it leaves the mouth. Maya accepted the coffee. I need to ask you something directly. Then ask. How many people in South End believe Harlan is helping push residents out for Lakefront Renewal Partners? The pastor did not answer right away. Believe? Most. No. Fewer. Can prove. Almost none. That is the problem. No. Pastor Brooks said. That is why you're here. Maya looked down at her notes. I can document pressure. I can document pattern. But proving coordination requires someone inside, or a record Harlan doesn't control. Pastor Brooks folded his hands. There may be someone inside. Maya looked up. Who? I won't give you a name until I know they're willing. Fear has rules, Miss William. Break them too fast, and people run back into silence. Maya wanted to push. She did not. Can you reach them? I can try. When? Tonight. That could put you at risk. The pastor smiled faintly. At my age, risk and morning coffee have both become part of the routine. Maya did not smile back. I'm serious. So am I. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Pastor Brooks leaned forward. You're carrying more than this case. Maya looked at him. That isn't relevant. It is if it makes you think you have to carry it alone. I don't. You do. The truth of it irritated her because she could not deny it quickly enough. He continued. You listen well. You write carefully. You stay calm. But I've watched you when Caleb's name comes up. I watched you yesterday in the cemetery. This town is pressing on an old bruise. Maya set the coffee down. My father was innocent. I assumed. He lost more than the case file ever showed. They usually do. I know what Harlan is doing because I've seen what men like him leave behind. Pastor Brooks nodded. Then use that knowledge. Don't let it use you. Maya sat with that. It was close to what Evelyn had told her, but not the same. Evelyn had warned her not to let the hurt child decide. Pastor Brooks was telling her the hurt child had still learned something useful. That was harder, because it meant the pain was not just damage. It was evidence of its own kind. Maya left the church at 5:42. By then, Gracewell had shifted into evening routines. People came home from work. Cars pulled into driveways. The bakery lights glowed warm on the corner, but Maya knew better than to mistake routine for safety. She drove to the motel without stopping. In room 12, she spread her notes across the desk. She built the timeline again, this time with categories: business pressure, traffic stops, permit delays, property offers, sheriff contact, deputy contact, community resistance. Every name added weight. Every date narrowed the space in which Harlan could claim coincidence. At 8:16 p.m., her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Maya let it ring twice, then answered. Miss William? A woman's voice. Careful. Low. Controlled. Yes. My name is Linda Hayes. I'm an officer with Gracewell Sheriff's Department. Maya sat up straighter. I know who you are. A pause. I figured you might. How did you get this number? Pastor Brooks. Maya said nothing. Linda continued. I don't have long. And I'm not sure I'm doing the right thing. If you're calling me, some part of you thinks you are. Another pause. Then Linda said, the stops aren't random. Maya picked up her pen. Can you prove that? I might have something. What kind of something? 3 years of stop logs. Not the public version. Maya's hand stilled. Officer Hayes, do not bring anything you are not legally allowed to access. Linda gave a quiet, humorless breath. That's the problem, Miss William. I was legally allowed to see it. I just wasn't supposed to understand what it meant. Maya looked at the names spread across the desk. When can we meet? Tomorrow night. Behind the church. After 9. That may not be safe for you. It hasn't been safe for a while. The line went quiet for a second. Then Linda added, I kept telling myself I wasn't the one giving the orders. Maya waited. Linda's voice tightened. But silence is a signature too. The call ended. Maya remained still. The phone in her hand. There it was. The side door James Monroe had warned her about. Not a confession from Harlan. Not yet, but a crack inside the machine. Maya opened her notebook and wrote Linda Hayes at the top of a new page. Then beneath it, potential internal witness. High risk. Handle carefully. Outside, a vehicle rolled slowly through the motel parking lot. Maya turned off the desk lamp. Headlights passed across the curtains. Paused for 3 seconds. Then moved on. She did not need to look to know who it was. By Friday, Harlan would understand that Southend had begun speaking. By Thursday night, Maya understood something more important. The system was not as solid as it looked. Someone inside it had started to bend toward the truth. The next morning, Sheriff Wade Harlan asked for Maya Williams' plates before he asked for his coffee. Deputy Kyle Mercer stood in the doorway of Harlan's office with his hat in one hand and a folder in the other. He looked pleased with himself, but not satisfied. Mercer liked answers that gave him permission to act. This folder did not quite do that. Harlan held out his hand. Mercer gave him the printout. Virginia registration, Mercer said. Gray. SUV. Registered through a private account, tied to some consulting outfit up there. Clean record. No warrants. No priors. No local ties I can find. Harlan read the page slowly. What kind of consulting outfit? Doesn't say much. Everybody says something. This one doesn't. Harlan looked up. Mercer shifted his weight. No Facebook. No Instagram. No LinkedIn that matches clean. No business website with her picture on it. Nothing useful. Harlan set the paper on his desk. That bothered him more than a criminal record would have. A criminal record gave a man handles. A speeding ticket, a lawsuit, a bad debt, an old arrest, an angry ex-husband, a careless post online. Those were things Harlan understood. Those were things he could pull. But Maya William had arrived in Gracewell like a plain envelope with no return address. Young black woman. Virginia plates. Calm under pressure. Legal language without claiming to be an attorney. Personal notes. No visible fear. Harlan did not like people he could not sort. Where is she now? He asked. Motel, Mercer said. Room 12. I drove past last night. Light went off when I came through the lot. Harlan's eyes narrowed. She saw you? Probably. You want her to see you? Mercer did not answer fast enough. Harlan leaned back in his chair. Kyle. Pressure works when people believe it might become something worse. If you make it obvious too early, it becomes evidence. Mercer's jaw flexed. She's already collecting evidence. She's collecting stories. What's the difference? Stories make noise. Evidence makes problems. Mercer looked toward the window. So what do you want me to do? Watch her. Don't touch her unless she gives you something clean. And if she doesn't? Harlan looked back at the printout. People always do. At the motel, Maya had already assumed Harlan would run her plates. She sat at the desk in room 12 with the curtains partly closed, building a second timeline from the notes she had gathered the day before. The first timeline was chronological. The second was structural. Who was pressured? What they owned? What action followed refusal to sell? Which officer appeared? Which town office issued paperwork? Where Lakefront Renewal Partners appeared afterward? Patterns became clearer when separated from emotion. Maya trusted patterns. Emotion could point to the wound, but pattern showed the weapon. At 8:43 a.m., she stepped outside with her leather bag and locked the room behind her. Mercer's cruiser was parked across the road near the gas station. He made no attempt to hide. Maya did not look directly at him. She walked to her SUV, opened the door, and placed her bag on the passenger seat. Before starting the engine, she took out her phone and dictated a short note into the secure app. Friday morning. Deputy Mercer parked across from motel. Visible surveillance. No contact. No emergency lights. No approach. Then she drove toward Main Street. Mercer followed 2 cars behind her. He stayed with her past the diner, past the hardware store, past the old pharmacy, then turned off when she approached Town Hall. Maya noticed the turn without changing speed. He wanted her to know she was being watched. That was useful. It meant Harlan had moved from curiosity to concern. Maya parked near the county records annex and went inside. She did not request anything dramatic. Property transfers were public. Business filings were public. Meeting notices were public. Men like Harlan counted on the public nature of records becoming meaningless because ordinary people lacked the time, training, or stamina to connect them. Maya had all 3. For 2 hours, she reviewed property transfers tied to Lakefront Renewal Partners. She found no direct signature from Harlan. She did not expect one. But she found repeated timing that mattered. An offer made. A refusal. A citation within weeks. A second offer. A traffic stop involving a family member. A permit delay. Another offer. Lower than the first. Not proof of conspiracy by itself. But not coincidence either. At 11:26, she found the name that made her stop. Raymond Cole had attended a closed redevelopment consultation at Town Hall 6 months earlier. Listed attendees included a county planning official, a zoning consultant, and Sheriff Wade Harlan. The meeting topic was written as Public Safety Considerations Related to Lake Access Development. Maya copied the meeting entry by hand, then she closed the file. When she stepped outside, Harlan was standing near the courthouse steps. He was not alone. Raymond Cole stood beside him in a navy suit, holding a slim folder under one arm. He looked polished, professional, and impatient in the way men often looked when they believed small towns existed to be negotiated into usefulness. Harlan saw Maya first. Cole followed his gaze. Maya walked toward the sidewalk as if she had not noticed them. Harlan called out, "Miss William?" She stopped and turned. "Sheriff, finding what you need?" "I'm finding public records." That wasn't my question. It was my answer. Cole's eyes moved over her, measuring. Harlan smiled faintly. "This is Mr. Raymond Cole. He's involved in some development planning around the lake." Maya looked at Cole. "Lakefront Renewal Partners." Cole's expression changed just enough. "You've heard of us. You file public documents." Harlan watched the exchange. Cole gave a polite smile. "We're trying to bring investment to an area that has been neglected for a long time." Maya nodded once. Neglect often becomes profitable right before displacement. Cole's smile faded. Harlan stepped in. "Miss William has strong opinions for a visitor." "Observation is not an opinion," Maya said. Harlan looked at her for a long moment. "You know, people around here are friendly to folks who come with respect." Maya held his gaze. "Respect is not the same as silence." Cole checked his watch. "I have another meeting." He walked toward Town Hall, leaving Harlan and Maya on the sidewalk. Harlan's voice lowered. "You should be careful who you listen to in South End. Some people down there have old grudges. Old grievances usually become grudges when no one addresses them. You think you know this town after 3 days? No. Good. I know enough to keep listening." Harlan's face hardened, but only for a moment. Then, he gave her the official smile again. "You have a good day, Miss William." "You too, Sheriff." Maya walked back to her SUV. She did not let herself breathe fully until the door closed behind her. Not because she feared Harlan in the ordinary way, because she had felt the shift. He was not simply annoyed now. He was testing distance, testing language, testing how much she knew, and who might be giving it to her. That made Linda Hayes more vulnerable. Maya drove away from Town Hall and did not go directly back to the motel. She took a legal route through Main Street, then South End, then the road near the church, watching for a tail. Mercer appeared again near the corner store, waited until she passed, then pulled out behind her. This time he stayed closer. Maya kept both hands on the wheel and drove exactly the speed limit. At the stop sign near Pine Street, Mercer's cruiser rolled up close behind her bumper. Too close. She looked at him in the rearview mirror. He was smiling. She signaled, turned, and drove toward Maggie's table. Mercer followed. She parked in front of the diner and got out. Mercer pulled to the curb across the street but remained in the cruiser. Inside, Darlene was refilling salt shakers. "Coffee?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am." Maya sat at the counter. Darlene poured, then leaned in slightly. "Deputy Mercer's been circling all morning. I noticed. You in some kind of trouble?" "Not yet." Darlene looked toward the window. "That man don't always wait for trouble before he starts acting like it arrived." Maya looked at her. "Has he done that often?" Darlene hesitated. Years of caution moved across her face. Then she said, "You didn't hear that from me." Maya nodded. "I didn't." Darlene walked away. That was how Gracewell worked. Even help came wrapped in fear. Maya stayed long enough for Mercer to become bored or impatient. After 20 minutes, his cruiser pulled away. Only then did she leave. Back in room 12, Maya updated her notes. Harlan aware of record search. Harlan introduced Raymond Cole directly. Cole reacted to knowledge of company name. Mercer visible surveillance escalating. Potential risk to Linda Hayes meeting. She paused at Linda's name. The meeting was set for that night behind the church, after 9. If Harlan already suspected someone inside was talking, Linda might be walking into the most dangerous decision of her career. Maya opened the secure phone and sent a short message to her supervisor. Potential internal witness tonight. Risk elevated. Request passive monitoring window. The reply came 2 minutes later. Approved. Do not initiate transfer of restricted documents. Confirm consent. Protect witness identity where possible. Maya read it twice. Then she set the phone down and closed her eyes. Her father came back to her in pieces at times like this, not as a full memory. A porch rail, a uniform sleeve, her mother's hand gripping a folder, the sound of a neighbor's door closing instead of opening. That was the part Maya remembered most clearly. Not the officers, not even the cuffs, the doors. People had watched her father be taken and decided not to step outside. Some were afraid, some were uncertain, some thought it was not their business. By the time the truth came, the silence had already done its work. Maya opened her eyes. That was why Linda mattered. Not because one officer could undo 14 years of Harlan's control, but because someone inside the silence had reached for the door handle. At 7:40 p.m., Maya prepared for the meeting. She charged her phone, checked her recorder, wrote the church address and meeting time into the secure log, placed Evelyn's timeline in a sealed folder, left her motel room arranged so that if someone entered, she would know what had been touched. At 8:52, she drove to Gracewell Baptist Church. She did not park in front. She parked on the side street, under a light, with a clear path to leave. Pastor Brooks had left the back gate unlatched, exactly as arranged. The church was quiet. Maya waited near the rear steps, not hidden, not exposed. At 9:07, a car rolled slowly into the back lane with its headlights off. Officer Linda Hayes stepped out. She wore jeans, a dark jacket, and no uniform. In her right hand was a plain manila envelope. Even from a distance, Maya could see fear in the way Linda held it. Not fear of doing wrong, fear of finally doing right too late. Maya walked toward her. Officer Hayes. Linda looked over her shoulder before answering. Call me Linda. Maya nodded. Linda. Linda held out the envelope, then pulled it back slightly. If I give you this, there's no taking it back. No, Maya said. There isn't. Linda swallowed. I kept telling myself I wasn't part of it. Maya waited. Linda looked toward the church, then back at Maya. But silence is a signature too. She handed over the envelope, and somewhere beyond the church, on a dark street that had learned to carry secrets quietly, a car engine turned over and drove away. Linda Hayes stood behind Gracewell Baptist Church with both hands empty now, but she looked more frightened after giving Maya the envelope than she had before. Maya did not open it right away. That mattered. A person handing over evidence was still a person, not a source, not a tool, not a convenient crack in someone else's wall. Linda had crossed a line that could cost her job, her pension, her standing, and perhaps every friendship she had laughed inside the sheriff's department. Maya held the envelope at her side. Before I look at this, she said, I need you to tell me what it is and how you got it. Linda took a breath. Stop logs. 3 years. Internal export. Not the public summaries. Did you have authorized access? Yes. Did you alter anything? No. Did you remove originals? No. Copies only. Maya nodded. Do you understand that if this becomes part of an investigation, you may be asked to explain your access and your chain of custody? Linda gave a small, humorless laugh. That's exactly why I almost turned around twice. Then, why didn't you? Linda looked toward the dark windows of the church. Because yesterday morning I watched Mercer joke about Caleb Carter in the break room. Maya waited. Linda's jaw tightened. He said Caleb was learning to keep his hands where they belonged. Then another deputy laughed and said, South End folks always learned eventually. She looked back at Maya. I didn't laugh. But I didn't say anything either. I went back to my desk and typed a report about a parking complaint like I hadn't heard it. Her voice dropped. I'm tired of being the kind of decent person who only behaves decently when it costs nothing. Maya, let that sit. Then she said, Who knows you contacted me? Pastor Brooks. Anyone else? No. Does Harlan suspect you? Linda hesitated. He suspects everybody a little. That's how he stays ahead. That's not an answer. Linda looked down. He asked me this afternoon if I'd noticed anyone in the department acting nervous. He said outsiders like you sometimes try to confuse good officers. What did you say? I said I hadn't noticed anything. Did he believe you? No. Maya looked toward the street beyond the church lot. The car engine she had heard moments earlier was gone now. But that did not mean they were alone. Gracewell had too many quiet corners, and too many people trained to report what they thought Harlan might want to know. "We should not stay here long," Maya said. Linda nodded. "I can't meet again like this." "I understand." "No. I mean, I really can't. If he connects me to this, he'll destroy me." Maya kept her voice even. "He may try." Linda's eyes sharpened. "That's supposed to comfort me?" "No. It's supposed to keep you realistic." For the first time, Linda almost smiled. "You always this direct?" "When people are in danger, yes." Maya opened her leather bag and placed the envelope inside, between her notebook and a sealed folder. She did not examine the pages under the church light. She would do that later, in a controlled setting, with secure documentation. "What happens now?" Linda asked. "I review it. I verify it against public records and witness accounts. I do not use your name unless necessary or authorized through proper channels. And if it becomes necessary, then we discuss protection options before that step." Linda looked at her carefully. "You can really do that?" "I can start that process. I won't promise what I don't control." Linda nodded slowly. "That's better than what people usually say." "What do they usually say?" "That everything will be fine." Maya said nothing. Everything would not be fine. Not quickly, not cleanly. Not for Linda, not for Evelyn, not for Caleb, not for Gracewell. Truth did not make things painless. It only made the pain harder to deny. Linda stepped back toward her car. "One more thing," she said. Maya looked at her. "The public stop reports don't show race consistently. The internal ones do. They also show officer notes. Some of those notes disappear before public review." "Disappear how?" "Reclassified. Edited. Summarized. Sometimes the narrative gets replaced with standard language." "By whom?" Linda swallowed. "I don't know for every case." "Who has access?" "Supervisors. Harlan. Records clerk. Sometimes Mercer, if he pressures the clerk." "Name of the clerk?" "Deborah Mills. She's not dirty. She's scared." Maya nodded once. "Thank you." Linda opened her car door, then stopped. "I should have done this sooner." Maya looked at her across the dark lot. "Yes," she said. Linda flinched a little. Maya continued. "But sooner is gone. Now is still here." Linda held her gaze for a moment, then got into the car and drove away with her headlights off until she reached the street. Maya waited 30 seconds before moving. Then she took a different route back to her SUV, crossing behind the fellowship hall and exiting through the side gate. She scanned the street. No cruiser. No parked car with an idling engine. No movement she could confirm. Still, she did not drive directly to the motel. She took a longer route through Main Street, doubled back near the pharmacy, then turned toward the North Road before circling around. Only after she was sure no vehicle stayed with her did she return to room 12. Inside, she locked the door, set a chair beneath the handle, closed the curtains, and photographed the envelope before opening it. She documented the time. 9:42 p.m. Source: Officer Linda Hayes, Gracewell Sheriff's Department. Material: internal stop log export, 3-year period. Condition: paper copies. Delivered in sealed manila envelope. She opened it carefully. The first pages were spreadsheets printed in black and white. Date, time, officer, location, subject name, race, stated basis, outcome, search conducted, consent claimed, citation issued, warning issued, arrest made, notes. Maya read the first 10 entries, then 20, then 50. The pattern appeared with ugly speed. South End appeared again and again. Pine Street, Mill Road, Church Lane, Hawthorne Avenue, the bakery block, the garage corner. Maya took out the public summaries she had downloaded earlier from the county portal. She compared entries. In the internal log, one stop read: subject, Caleb Carter, race, black, officer, Mercer, basis, suspicious vehicle near commercial district, search, requested, consent, unclear, officer note, Carter family linked to ongoing Carter property issue. In the public summary, the same stop read: routine patrol contact, warning issued. Maya stared at the difference. Property issue. That phrase should not have been in a traffic stop note. She moved to another entry. Subject: Marcus Harper. Race: black. Officer: Mercer. Basis: pedestrian suspicious behavior. Location: Pine Street. Officer note: known associate of Denise Harper. Salon owner, anti-development comments. The public summary read: citizen contact. No action. Maya wrote a note beside it. Political? Business association appears in law enforcement note. Another entry. Subject: James Monroe. Race: black. Officer: Harlan. Basis: vehicle inspection concern. Officer note: owner declined LRP offer. Monitor compliance. LRP: Lakefront Renewal Partners. Maya sat back. There it was. Not the whole case. Not yet. But the bridge she needed. Traffic stops, business compliance, and property acquisition were not merely happening in the same neighborhood. They were being connected inside the department's own records. She scanned key pages through the secure app and uploaded them in batches. Each upload received a confirmation code. She copied those codes into her notebook. At 10:31 p.m., she called her supervisor. The line connected on the second ring. I have internal stop logs, Maya said. From Hayes? Yes. Access appears authorized. Copies only. Chain documented. Content. Significant. Internal notes connect stops to property disputes and lakefront renewal partners. Some public summaries appear sanitized. A pause. How explicit? Explicit enough to elevate. Send priority packet. Already uploading. Do you have reference to Harlan? Yes. Entries by Harlan and Mercer. One note references LRP. Another references Carter property issue. The supervisor's voice changed. Do not confront Harlan. I don't intend to. Do not approach the department. I won't. Do not meet Hayes again without clearance. Understood. And? Maya. Yes? This changes your posture. You are no longer just observing a pattern. You may be holding evidence of coordinated misconduct. I know. That means Harlan becomes more dangerous if he realizes what you have. Maya looked at the envelope on the desk. He may already suspect Linda. Then we move carefully. I'll alert the team for standby review. Not intervention? Not yet. We need authentication and one overt act if possible. Maya knew what that meant. One overt act. A direct action by Harlan or his deputies that demonstrated the pattern in real time, under observation, with a clear target and a clear misuse of authority. She thought of Friday's fundraiser. Evelyn, Caleb, Maggie's table, the public invitation in the bakery window. Harlan would not let that breakfast pass. He'll move tomorrow, Maya said. Against whom? Evelyn Carter. The fundraiser. Can you maintain distance? I can try. That is not the same as yes. No, Maya said. It isn't. Her supervisor was quiet. Remember your role. My role is to observe and document, and not become the story. Maya looked at the stop logs. Sometimes that was possible. Sometimes power made another choice for you. I understand, she said. After the call, Maya worked past midnight. She built a comparison table. Internal entry versus public summary. Officer, subject, race, link to property, related business or family, outcome. She marked entries that matched witness interviews from James Monroe, Denise Harper, Loretta Fields, Arthur Bell, Evelyn Carter, and Caleb. By 12:48 a.m., the pattern was no longer just visible. It was organized. Maya printed nothing. She kept the originals from Linda in the envelope, placed the envelope inside a weatherproof document sleeve, and tucked it beneath the false bottom of her suitcase. The digital copies were already out of Gracewell's reach. At 1:10 a.m., headlights crossed the motel curtains. Maya turned off the desk lamp and stood to the side of the window, not in front of it. A cruiser rolled slowly through the lot. It stopped near room 12. The engine remained on. Maya did not move. After nearly a minute, the cruiser continued to the far end of the lot and turned around. As it passed again, Maya caught enough of the side number to identify it. Mercer. She waited until the cruiser left the property before recording the incident. 1:12 a.m. Deputy Mercer drove through motel lot, stopped outside room 12. Approximately 50 seconds. No contact. She set the recorder down and sat on the bed without undressing. Sleep would not come easily now. In another part of town, Linda Hayes did not sleep either. She sat at her kitchen table with a glass of water untouched in front of her and her phone face down beside it. Her house was small, neat, and too quiet. On the wall near the hallway hung a framed photo from her academy graduation. In it, Linda was younger, proud, standing between her parents with a badge newly pinned to her chest. She had believed something then. That belief had not vanished all at once. It had thinned, year by year, excuse by excuse. A questionable stop, a complaint no one followed, a joke she did not laugh at, a report she told herself was not her responsibility. Silence had not felt like betrayal in the beginning. It had felt like survival. Her phone buzzed at 1:26 a.m. Unknown number. Linda stared at it until it stopped. Then, a text appeared. You should be careful who you talk to. No signature. None was needed. Linda put one hand over her mouth. By morning, she would go to work and find out whether the warning had teeth. At 6:40 a.m., Sheriff Harlan arrived at the department before most of his deputies. He went straight to records. Deborah Mills, the records clerk, was already at her desk with a cup of tea and a stack of forms. She looked up, startled. Sheriff, morning. Morning, Deborah. He closed the door behind him. Her eyes moved to the door. Harlan placed one hand on the back of a chair but did not sit. Anybody been pulling old stop logs? Deborah blinked. Old logs? Internal exports. 3-year reports. Anything like that. She looked at her computer. I'd have to check. Check. Her fingers moved across the keyboard. Harlan watched her face more than the screen. After a moment, Deborah said, Officer Hayes ran a report yesterday afternoon. Harlan's expression did not change. What report? Traffic stop logs. 3-year range. Did she say why? No, sir. He nodded. Print the access record. Deborah hesitated. Sheriff. Is something wrong? Harlan smiled politely. That's what I'm trying to find out. At 7:15, Linda Hayes walked into the Gracewell Sheriff's Department and knew immediately that something had changed. Conversations stopped too quickly. Mercer looked at her from the hallway with a smile that had no humor in it. Harlan stood outside his office holding a single sheet of paper. Officer Hayes, he said. Step inside. Linda felt every step between the hallway and his door. Harlan closed it behind her. He did not offer her a chair. Busy day yesterday? He asked. Linda kept her hands at her sides. Normal shift. Run any reports? Yes. What for? Review. Review of what? Traffic activity. Harlan looked at the paper. 3 years of traffic activity? Linda did not answer fast enough. Harlan folded the access record once and set it on his desk. You been talking to anyone outside this department? No one inappropriate. His eyes lifted. That wasn't what I asked. Linda's throat tightened. I spoke with Pastor Brooks this week. He asked about community concerns. Community concerns. Yes. And Maya William. Linda said nothing. Harlan leaned back against the desk. There are outsiders who come into towns like ours because they don't understand the history, the relationships, the balance that keeps things from falling apart. Linda heard herself answer before fear could stop her. Sometimes balance is just what people call pressure when they're not the ones under it. Harlan went still. The silence that followed was worse than shouting. Then he picked up a form from his desk. Officer Hayes, pending administrative review. You are relieved of patrol duty, effective immediately. Linda stared at him. For what reason? Violation of internal procedure. What procedure? The review will determine that. She almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because she had spent years watching that exact kind of sentence destroy people without ever saying what they had done. Harlan slid the form toward her. Badge and department weapons stay here for now. Linda looked at the badge on her belt. For a moment, she saw the academy photograph again. Then, she removed the badge and placed it on his desk. Her hand shook once. Harlan noticed. Of course he did. You've been a good officer, Linda. Don't let the wrong people make you forget where you belong. Linda looked at him. For the first time in years, she answered without lowering her eyes. I think that's exactly what I was doing. She walked out without waiting for permission. By 8:03 a.m., Maya received the message from Pastor Brooks. Linda suspended. Harlan knows she accessed logs. Maya read it twice. Then she looked at the sealed envelope hidden beneath her suitcase lining. The machine had felt the crack. Now it was tightening around the person who made it. Maya opened her notebook and wrote, "Retaliation against internal witness confirmed." Under that, she added, "Friday fundraiser likely flashpoint." She closed the notebook. Outside, Gracewell was waking into the day Harlan believed he could still control. But the truth had already left the building, and by breakfast the next morning, every person inside Maggie's table would learn what men like Harlan did when control began slipping through their fingers. By 8:30 that morning, Maya William knew the investigation had crossed a line Sheriff Wade Harlan could feel. Linda Hayes had been suspended. Not formally fired. Not publicly accused. Not arrested. Suspended. It was the kind of punishment men like Harlan preferred at first because it looked procedural from the outside and sounded temporary to people who did not understand how power worked. Administrative review. Violation of internal procedure. Pending further investigation. Words clean enough to hide the dirt under them. Maya sat at the small desk in room 12 with Linda's stop logs open in front of her and Evelyn Carter's citation timeline beside them. She had slept less than 2 hours, but exhaustion did not slow her. It sharpened one part of her mind and cautioned another. Move too fast, and Harlan would claim she had come to Gracewell with a conclusion already written. Move too slow, and someone like Evelyn or Caleb would pay the price. She read the internal logs again, this time looking not just for stops, but for timing. Lakefront Renewal Partners made an offer to James Monroe. 2 weeks later, Harlan conducted a vehicle inspection concern outside Monroe's garage. Denise Harper spoke against the lake project at a community meeting. 9 days later, her nephew Marcus was stopped walking home from work and logged as a known associate of anti-development activity. Evelyn Carter refused a second offer. 4 days later, Caleb was stopped for a delivery vehicle check. The notes were careful, but not careful enough. Whoever wrote them had assumed the records would stay inside the department, where nobody would ask why traffic enforcement was mentioning property negotiations. Maya opened the county property file she had copied from the records annex. Lakefront Renewal Partners had already purchased 5 parcels in South End. 3 more were pending. Every parcel formed part of a corridor leading from Main Street toward the Lake Road. Carter's sweet oven sat at the corner that connected the corridor to the older business block. Without Evelyn's property, the development plan had a gap. With it, South End could be renamed, repackaged, and sold to people who would call its disappearance improvement. Maya wrote the phrase in her notebook, displacement through enforcement pressure. That was the center of it. Not one bad traffic stop, not one rude deputy, not one elderly woman being harassed over a sign. A coordinated use of local authority to make black property owners tired enough, poor enough, and afraid enough to sell. At 9:05, Maya called her supervisor. "I have the land connection," she said. "How strong?" "Strong circumstantial link. Internal stop notes, reference property disputes, and LRP. Public records show offers and purchases aligned with enforcement pressure. Direct payment trail? Not yet. Direct written instruction from Harlan? Not yet. Then it's not locked. I know. What's your next step? Authenticate the property sequence and monitor the fundraiser tomorrow. Harlan is going to act." Her supervisor paused. "You keep saying that because he has to." "No, Maya. He doesn't have to. You think he will because his pattern points there. But don't confuse pattern with certainty." Maya accepted the correction. "You're right. I believe the fundraiser is a probable flashpoint." "That's better." Linda's suspension confirms sensitivity. It confirms retaliation. It also means Harlan may accelerate or hide. He's too confident to hide. That is an assessment. Yes, not a fact. Maya looked at the notes. Understood. Her supervisor's voice softened, but only slightly. "You are tired. I'm functional. That wasn't my question. I slept enough. That also wasn't my question." Maya did not answer. The supervisor let the silence hold for a moment. "Do not make this personal." Maya's eyes went to the photograph of her father, tucked partly beneath the motel Bible on the nightstand. "It was personal before I got here," she said. "That may be true, but the case cannot be built on your pain." "It won't be." "Good. Build it on records." "I am." "And witnesses." "Yes. And the subject's own choices." Maya looked at Harlan's name on the page. "That part is coming." After the call, she drove to Carter's sweet oven. Evelyn was behind the counter, but the bakery felt different. Not closed, not defeated, tense. A stack of donation envelopes sat near the register. A clipboard listed names of people who had promised to attend the Friday breakfast at Maggie's table. Caleb was loading boxes for the day's deliveries. His face changed when he saw Maya. "Linda got suspended," he said. Maya looked at Evelyn. Evelyn's mouth tightened. "Pastor told us." Maya nodded. "I'm sorry." Evelyn wiped her hands on her apron. "That woman did something brave." "She did. Bravery costs too much in this town. It often does, at first." Caleb stepped closer. "What happens to her now?" "She needs counsel and distance from unnecessary contact. The most important thing is that she does not try to explain herself to people who are already looking for ways to punish her." Caleb looked away. "That sounds like advice for all of us." "It is." Evelyn studied Maya. "You think Harlan's coming tomorrow. I think the fundraiser threatens him." "It's just breakfast." "No, Mrs. Carter. It's people refusing to be isolated." Evelyn looked down at the envelopes. For years, Harlan's pressure had worked because each person suffered separately. A ticket here, a stop there, a delayed permit somewhere else. Everyone thought their problem was too small to name, too difficult to prove, too risky to fight. A fundraiser changed that. A room full of people changed that. A list of names changed that. Evelyn said, "Should we cancel?" Caleb turned sharply. "Grandma, I'm asking." Maya answered carefully. "That is your decision, not mine. But you have an opinion." "Yes. And if you cancel because you choose another strategy, that is one thing. If you cancel because Harlan scared you into silence, he learns the same lesson he has been learning for 14 years. Evelyn nodded slowly. "That fear still works." Maya did not soften the truth. "Yes," Caleb said. "Then we don't cancel." Evelyn looked at him. "You don't get to decide that for me." His face fell a little. "No, ma'am." She turned back to Maya. "If we go through with it, I don't want Caleb arrested. Then he needs to be careful. No raised voice, no sudden movement, no arguing with Mercer." Caleb frowned. "So I'm supposed to just stand there?" "You stand there and remember everything." He recognized the phrase from the diner that had not happened yet, though in his life the instruction already belonged to Maya. Time, words. "Who was there?" he said. "Yes." Evelyn put one hand over the envelopes. "Joseph used to say a business is just walls unless people trust it." Maya waited. "This place was never just walls," Evelyn said. "And South End was never just land." Maya looked at her. "That is exactly what Harlan and Lakefront Renewal Partners need people to forget." At 11:40, Maya went to the county records annex again. This time she requested older planning documents related to the lake access proposal. The clerk on duty was younger than the woman from the day before and less comfortable saying no. Maya asked only for public materials, wrote down file numbers, and took notes by hand. She found the development language repeated across several documents: revitalization, safety improvement, traffic flow, blight reduction, public-private partnership. None of the words said removal. They did not have to. One map showed the proposed access route cutting through South End's commercial block. Carter's sweet oven was not labeled by name. Neither was Monroe's garage or Harper's salon. The map called them legacy commercial structures. Maya wrote that phrase down. Legacy. Like history. Like already gone. The same word Evelyn remembered from the man in the suit. At 12:22, Maya found a meeting summary from 6 months earlier. Public safety concerns related to redevelopment corridor. Attendees included Raymond Cole, County Planning Liaison Frank Bellard, Sheriff Wade Harlan, and 2 unnamed consultants. The summary noted patterns of nuisance activity in the proposed corridor. Maya's eyes stopped on that phrase. Nuisance activity. In internal stop logs, suspicious behavior, and commercial disturbance appeared repeatedly in that same area, mostly attached to black residents, business owners, and relatives of people refusing to sell. The public planning record called it nuisance activity. The sheriff's internal logs helped create it. She copied the sentence exactly. At 1:10, she was leaving the annex when Raymond Cole stepped into the hallway from a side office. This time he was alone. "Miss William," he said. She stopped. "Mr. Cole, you're very interested in local paperwork. It's public." "Of course," he smiled, but there was impatience under it. "I hope no one has given you the wrong impression about our project. Lakefront renewal is bringing jobs, infrastructure, tax revenue. Places like South End have been neglected too long." "Neglected by whom?" The question caught him off guard. "I'm sorry? You said South End has been neglected. By whom?" He adjusted the folder under his arm. "I meant generally, economically. Neglect is not weather, Mr. Cole. Someone makes decisions." His smile thinned. "You're not from here." "I've heard that a lot." "Then you may not understand the local context." "I understand when a community becomes valuable right after the people living there are pressured to leave." Cole's face hardened. "That is an unfair characterization. Then it should be easy to disprove." He looked past her toward the front desk, then back. "You should be careful about making accusations. I have not accused you of anything." "No," he said. "You're too careful for that." Maya said nothing. Cole leaned slightly closer. "Whatever you think you're doing here, Miss William, don't mistake old resentment for evidence." Maya met his eyes. "Don't mistake paperwork for innocence." For a moment, the hallway went quiet. Then Cole stepped around her and walked toward the exit. Maya watched him go. The encounter confirmed what she already suspected. Cole knew her presence was not casual. Whether Harlan had warned him or the records clerk had mentioned her requests, the development side of the network was now aware. That shortened the timeline. At 2:30, Maya returned to the motel and updated the secure file. She marked the development records as public source corroboration and linked them to Linda's internal logs. She did not overstate the conclusion. Federal cases did not survive on outrage. They survived on disciplined language, possible coordination between law enforcement activity and redevelopment pressure, potential misuse of police authority to support private development interests, racially disparate impact concentrated in South End, potential retaliatory action against internal officer following access to stop logs. She read the lines twice. Then she added, "Fundraiser at Maggie's table may trigger further enforcement action." At 4:05, Pastor Brooks called. "Linda is home," he said. "Shaken, but safe." "Has Harlan contacted her again?" "Not directly. That may not last." "I know. Tell her not to speak with anyone from the department without counsel." "I did." "And, Pastor?" "Yes. If tomorrow escalates, keep Caleb away from Mercer." "I'll do what I can." "That's not enough." There was a pause. Then Pastor Brooks said, "You're asking an old man with a cane to manage a young man's rage and a sheriff's pride in the same room." "Yes." He gave a quiet breath. "Then I suppose I'll need a good breakfast first." Maya almost smiled, but the weight in her chest did not lift. At 6, South End began preparing for Friday. Evelyn baked late. Caleb packed boxes. Maggie Duval confirmed she would open the back section of the diner for the fundraiser. James Monroe promised to come before his first appointment. Denise Harper said she would bring 2 women from the salon. Arthur Bell offered to help write names and donations clearly for the legal fund. No one called it a protest. That would give Harlan the word he wanted. They called it breakfast. That was all it had to be. At 8:14 p.m., Maya sat in her SUV across from Maggie's table and watched the lights inside. Maggie moved between tables, setting out napkins and extra chairs. She was not a loud woman. She had no history of activism, but she had said yes when Evelyn asked to use the diner, and in Gracewell, yes could be a dangerous word. Maya recorded a short note. Maggie's table, preparing for fundraiser. No crowd. No disturbance. Event appears private. Food service within normal business operation. She was about to start the engine when a sheriff's cruiser pulled up behind the diner. Harlan got out. He entered through the rear door. Maya did not move. 5 minutes later, Maggie came out the front door and stood under the awning with both arms folded. Harlan followed. They spoke. Maya could not hear the words from across the street, but she could read enough of the posture. Harlan was calm. Maggie was trying not to bend. After a minute, Harlan leaned in slightly and said something that made Maggie look away. Then he left. Maya waited until his cruiser was gone before crossing the street. Maggie was still outside. "You shouldn't be here," Maggie said, before Maya could speak. "What did he say?" Maggie looked at the empty street. "He said health inspectors can find things when they have reason to look." Maya nodded. "Anything else?" Said, "My liquor license renewal comes up in 6 weeks. Maggie's table serves liquor? Beer on weekends. Hardly matters. License matters more than sales. Did he tell you to cancel?" "No. Men like Wade don't say the thing directly unless they have to." Maya wrote it down. Maggie watched her. "You really think writing will stop him?" "No. Then what will?" "The moment he forgets, people are writing." Maggie looked toward the diner windows. "He'll come tomorrow." "Yes." "You going to be here?" "Yes." "Can you stop him?" Maya looked at her. "Not before he chooses." Maggie understood enough to pale slightly. "You're waiting for him to do it." "I'm waiting for him to show it." "That's a hard thing to ask people to stand through." "Yes," Maya said. "It is." Maggie looked at her for a long moment. Then she said, "Coffee will be ready at 7. Maya nodded. "I'll be here." That night, Maya did not sleep. She reviewed every note, every uploaded file, every timestamp. She placed her recorder in her bag and checked the backup settings twice. She wrote out the names of likely witnesses: Evelyn Carter, Caleb Carter, Pastor Samuel Brooks, Maggie Duvall, James Monroe, Denise Harper, Arthur Bell. She added one more line: "Maintain distance unless direct rights violation occurs." Then she stared at it, because she knew herself. If Harlan threatened Evelyn in front of that room, distance would become harder. If Mercer put hands on Caleb, protocol would feel like a chain. If an old woman was ordered to surrender her dignity over a breakfast fundraiser that broke no law, Maya would have to choose every word with care. At 5:52 Friday morning, she dressed in the brown jacket, dark jeans, and boots she had worn since arriving. Nothing official. Nothing that gave Harlan a reason to hesitate before revealing himself. At 6:30, she placed her father's photograph inside the motel Bible. Not from faith, but from habit. She did not carry it into the field. Pain had taught her where to look. It could not be allowed to hold the pen. At 7:05, Maya drove to Maggie's table. The diner lights were on. Evelyn's delivery car was already parked outside. Caleb stood near the rear entrance carrying trays. Pastor Brooks arrived slowly with his cane. Maggie unlocked the front door. One by one, people from South End began to enter. Not a crowd, not a mob, just neighbors, just witnesses, just people tired of being handled separately. Maya parked across the street and wrote the time. 7:12 a.m. Friday fundraiser beginning peacefully. Then, she looked at the road leading from the sheriff's department. Empty for now, but not for long. Gracewell had reached the morning Harlan could not ignore. By the time the sun went down over Gracewell, no one had called it victory. That would have been too easy. Victory sounded clean. What happened in Gracewell was not clean. It was a beginning made out of bruised wrists, old receipts, frightened testimony, and years of people being told that what happened to them was too small to matter. But that Friday evening, something had changed. People walked past the sheriff's department slower than before. Not to stare, not to celebrate, just to see it with their own eyes. The building was still there. The flag was still there. The sign still read, "To protect and serve." But Sheriff Wade Harlan was no longer standing behind the glass like the town belonged to him. That mattered. Inside the department, Agent Marlene Price and her team continued working through records. Officer Clara Marsh had been named acting supervisor for the immediate transition, and the weight of it sat plainly on her face. She did not pretend to be ready. That was the first thing Maya respected about her. Clara stood near the front desk with a folder in her hands and said, "I don't know how deep this goes." Maya looked at the boxes of copied records stacked near the conference room. "Start by assuming it goes deeper than you want it to." Clara swallowed. "That sounds about right." No one fixes 14 years in one weekend. I know, but you can stop making it worse today. Clara nodded slowly. That, I can do. She looked toward the hallway where Harlan's office door was closed. I saw things, Clara said. Not all of it, but enough. I told myself I was keeping my head down so I could keep my job and do some good where I could. Maya did not soften the answer. Sometimes keeping your head down lets other people get stepped on. Clara closed her eyes briefly. Yes. When she opened them, they were wet but steady. Then I'll start with the complaint files. Start with the ones nobody wanted to read. Clara nodded again. Outside, the people from South End slowly returned to Maggie's table. The fundraiser had not ended. It had changed shape. The biscuits had gone cold, the coffee had turned bitter in the pot, and the donation envelopes had been moved twice to keep them organized. But people kept coming. Not a crowd, a line. James Monroe came back after closing his garage early. Denise Harper brought more envelopes from women at the salon who had heard what happened. Loretta Fields returned after sleeping only 3 hours. Arthur Bell sat at a table with his yellow legal pad, writing names and amounts carefully because he said history deserved good penmanship. Evelyn Carter stood behind a table she had not planned to stand behind, receiving people who touched her arm, squeezed her hand, or simply nodded because words were too much. Caleb stayed near her. He looked older than he had that morning. Not aged exactly. Clarified. He had wanted to fight. He had not. He had wanted to shout. He had written instead. That kind of restraint left a mark on a man. When Maya entered Maggie's table just after 6:30, conversations lowered. Evelyn saw her and came around the table. For a moment, neither woman spoke. Then Evelyn took Maya's hands and turned them gently, seeing the red marks on her wrists. They did that because of me, Evelyn said. No, ma'am, Maya said. They did that because of them. Evelyn held her gaze. I should have stood sooner. You stood today. Late. Still standing. Evelyn's mouth trembled, but she nodded. Caleb stepped forward. I'm sorry, I almost made it worse. Maya looked at him. You didn't. I wanted to hit him. I know. I still do. That feeling may stay a while. What do I do with it? Maya looked toward Arthur Bell, writing at the table. Toward Maggie, refilling cups. Toward Pastor Brooks, speaking quietly with James Monroe. Use it to remember. Use it to testify. Use it to build something they can't dismiss as anger. Caleb nodded, though it was clear the answer hurt. Pastor Brooks walked over with his cane. The people are asking what happens next. Maya looked around the room. They keep records. They give statements. They don't exaggerate. They don't let anyone tell them a small wrong is harmless when it is part of a pattern. The pastor smiled faintly. That sounds like a sermon with better paperwork. It probably is. For the first time all day, Caleb almost laughed. Over the next several days, Gracewell entered the difficult part. The part after fear breaks but before trust has grown back. Sheriff Harlan was placed on administrative suspension by emergency action from the county board. Deputy Mercer was relieved of duty pending investigation. The records room remained under preservation order. The state opened a parallel review. The Department of Justice began formal interviews with residents of South End. There were people in town who defended Harlan. Of course there were. Some said he had kept Gracewell safe. Some said outsiders were stirring up trouble. Some said South End residents were making everything about race. Some said Maya had tricked him. Maya heard all of it. None of it surprised her. People who had benefited from silence often mistook truth for attack. But there were other voices now too. Mrs. Latham testified that Caleb's delivery car had never caused trouble. James Monroe brought in every delayed license renewal notice. Denise Harper's nephew Marcus gave dates for each stop. Loretta Fields brought the loitering citation from the bus stop. Arthur Bell provided a copy of the complaint he filed 3 years earlier and the records of what happened afterward. Linda Hayes gave her statement with counsel present. She was pale when she arrived at the temporary interview room, but she did not turn back. She confirmed the stop logs, the altered public summaries, the internal language about property disputes, and the way officers were encouraged to clean up reports before review. When she finished, she sat alone in the hallway for several minutes. Maya sat beside her. Linda stared at her hands. I kept thinking I'd feel better after telling the truth. Maya looked ahead. Sometimes truth doesn't feel good at first. Sometimes it just stops the bleeding. Linda nodded slowly. I can live with that. 2 weeks later, the first official corrections began. Evelyn Carter's pending fines were frozen, then reviewed. Several were dismissed outright. Her bakery permits were restored to normal standing. The town could not give back the sleep she had lost, or the dignity stolen one inspection at a time, but it could no longer pretend the paperwork had been neutral. Caleb's record was corrected. The warnings tied to questionable stops were flagged for review. His delivery car was returned from its last hold without fee. Monroe's garage received its delayed renewal. Harper's Salon had its inspection file reopened. The loitering citation against Loretta Fields was dismissed. Small things. On paper. Large things. In a life. A civilian oversight committee was created for the transition. Pastor Brooks agreed to serve. Evelyn resisted at first, saying she had a bakery to run. But Caleb told her Joseph would have wanted her in that room. So she said yes. Arthur Bell agreed to help organize public statements. Clara Marsh began reviewing complaint procedures with state guidance. She made mistakes. She admitted them. That alone made the department feel different. Gracewell did not become noble overnight. No town does. But people began speaking at normal volume in places where they had once whispered. Men who had crossed the street to avoid deputies now looked them in the eye. Women who had kept folders hidden in kitchen drawers brought them to meetings. People who had believed their stories were too small began to understand that small stories, placed together, could become a record no one could ignore. On Sunday morning, Maya packed her suitcase in room 12. She left nothing behind, except the faint impression of where her notebook had rested on the desk. The original documents were secured. The digital files were uploaded. Her statement was complete. Agent Price would remain for the next phase. Maya's work in Gracewell was done. Before leaving town, she drove to Carter's Sweet Oven. The bakery was open. Evelyn stood behind the counter, placing peach muffins into a white box. Caleb was wiping down tables. The bell above the door rang when Maya entered, and both of them looked up. Evelyn did not ask where she was going. She knew. I packed you something, she said. Maya walked to the counter. You didn't have to. I know. Evelyn pushed the box toward her. Peach cobbler. Small one. Road size. Maya smiled softly. I don't think road size is a legal measurement. It is in Alabama. Caleb leaned against the counter. Will we see you again? Maya looked at him. Probably not. He nodded. Disappointed but not surprised. That how your job works? Most of the time. You come in, write everything down, then leave. When the record is strong enough for others to carry forward. Evelyn studied her. That sounds lonely. Maya did not answer right away. It can be. Evelyn reached under the counter and pulled out an old photograph. It was not the one of Joseph. On opening day, it was a copy, newly made. Joseph stood in front of Carter's Sweet Oven, smiling with his hand on the door. I want you to have this, Evelyn said. Maya hesitated. Mrs. Carter, that belongs to you. I still have mine. This one is for your file that doesn't go to Washington. Maya accepted it carefully. Evelyn's eyes softened. Your father would be proud. The words reached Maya before she could prepare for them. She looked down at the photograph of Joseph Carter, a man who had built something honest and left people behind to protect it. Then she thought of Henry William in his army uniform, standing on a porch where innocence had not been enough to protect him. I think, Maya said quietly, he would rest a little easier today. Evelyn came around the counter and hugged her. Maya stood still for half a second, then hugged her back. It was brief. It was enough. Outside, Pastor Brooks waited near the curb, with both hands resting on his cane. I figured you'd try to leave without a blessing, he said. I wasn't trying. You were absolutely trying. Maya almost smiled. He lifted one hand and placed it gently on her shoulder. May the road be honest. May the next town have more courage than fear. And may you remember you are not only what the work requires of you. Maya looked at him. That last part sounds difficult. Most true things do. She nodded. Then she got into the gray SUV. As she drove down Main Street, she passed Maggie's table, where the morning crowd had already gathered. Maggie was pouring coffee. Arthur Bell sat by the window with his yellow legal pad. James Monroe's truck was parked outside. Denise Harper stood on the sidewalk talking with Loretta Fields. The sheriff's department came into view 2 blocks later. The flag still moved above the door. The sign still said "to protect and serve." But the parking space once reserved for Sheriff Harlan was empty. Maya drove past without slowing. At the edge of town, she looked once in the rearview mirror. Gracewell was still there, still imperfect, still wounded, still full of people who would have to choose truth again and again, long after the federal vehicles left. But it was breathing differently now. Not freely, not yet, but less afraid. Maya turned onto the North Road, the box of peach cobbler on the passenger seat. Evelyn's photograph tucked safely inside her bag. Her phone would ring again soon. Another town, another file, another pattern waiting for someone patient enough to see it. She did not feel heroic. She felt tired. She felt grateful. She felt the old ache of her father's story settle into a quieter place inside her. Justice did not always arrive with sirens and flashing lights. Sometimes it walked into a diner as a quiet black woman with a notebook, asked one lawful question, and reminded an entire town that the law did not belong to the badge. It belonged to the truth. The lesson from this story is simple, but powerful. Injustice survives when good people stay silent, and it begins to fall apart when ordinary people decide to tell the truth together. A badge, a title, or a position of power should never be used to frighten the weak, silence the poor, or erase a community's dignity. Real courage is not always loud. Sometimes it is an old woman keeping every receipt, a young man choosing restraint over anger, a pastor standing beside his people, or one quiet witness asking, "What law was broken?" Thank you for listening to the very end of this story. Your time, your attention, and your heart mean more than words can say. Please let us know what you think about the way this story was told. Did it move you? Was there a moment that stayed with you? Your comments help us tell better, deeper, and more meaningful stories. And if you have a true story, a powerful memory, or an inspiring experience about justice, kindness, courage, or standing up against unfairness, please share it with our channel. Your story may become the next voice that gives hope to someone who needs it. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only.